this is the tutorial that can legit solidify you as a highly skilled developer in the market. Because this is not just a simple React.js app, but a full stack URL shortener app with features like authentication, shortening the URL along with analytics tracking, generating QR codes. We will discuss how you can upload images through storage buckets in Supabase, along with this fully responsive, beautiful user interface which we will be building using React.js and Shadcn UI. So right off the bat, you can see we have this modern looking landing page over here with these FAQs on the bottom as well. And you can see we have this input field where we can enter our long URL. So let's just take a long URL and enter it over here. And right now we were not logged in, right? So it told us, hold up, let's log in first. And you'll notice as soon as I log in, it's gonna resume our flow. So either we can go on and sign up, and also we can upload the profile picture. I'll show you how you can do that. So right now I already have an account, right? So rc@example.com. I'll enter my password and click on login. And awesome, you can see our login flow has been resumed over here. Let's just give this interview course, and we can also enter the custom link for our URL. So I'm gonna say IC and click on create, and you're gonna see we have this beautiful loading indicator, and we have been routed to this link page. On the left side, you can see the details related to the URL. We have the download button which can, enable us to download this QR code as well. We can delete our link. We can also copy the link, the short link over here. So if I click on over here and paste it inside of this tab over here and click enter, you're gonna see it shows us redirecting, and we have been redirected to our original link. Amazing. And now if I go back and refresh this page, you're gonna see we can see that there was one click that was hit, and this one person was from Gurugram and they were using desktop. So you can see we have implemented this production grade features like analytics, which you hardly see on any other tutorial on YouTube. Let me show you another link that I've created. So I'll go to my links over here. You can see we are on our dashboard where we can see the total links created. We can see the total clicks on those links. We have this filter field where we can search for our links, right? Like if I enter something, you can see it's filtering it live, and we can also do those actions like copy, download and delete from over here as well. Click on this course link, and you can see it has total clicks as 5, and we can see all of these users, like 2 from Delhi, 1 from Mumbai, 2 from Gurgaon. If we scroll down, 20% of the users were using mobile, 80% were using desktop, right? So this is an amazing app that can truly impress your recruiter. And for the backend, we have used Supabase, which uses a PostgreSQL database behind the scenes. So you can see we have our URLs database, we have our clicks database. We will discuss every single thing in this video, along with the best practices on how you can build a production grade React.js app. So I open VS Code over here, and in the terminal, I'm gonna go and say npm create wheat at latest. And now it's gonna ask us the name of the project. So we already have named our folder URL shortener. So I'm just gonna press dot and create the project inside this folder. And let's select React with JavaScript. And you can see it has created a brand new React app right over here. Let's just delete the things that we don't need. And meanwhile, I'm gonna say npm install to install all the dependencies that are inside of this package.json file. So let's just remove the things that we're not gonna need inside of index.css and the app.css. Inside of app.jsx, I'm gonna remove all of these things, this state right over here, and all of this code over here, and simply I'm gonna have a div which will say subscribe to Roadside Coder, which you should if you haven't yet. Okay, now after this, let's go on to our browser and we're gonna install Shadcn UI. So I'll say Shadcn UI. Let's go to this website. I'm gonna click on get started and installation. So let's see how we can install this UI library with React. So if we click on Wheat over here, you can see we have installed the Wheat, the React app. And after that, we have to run this to install Tailwind CSS, because Shadcn UI is a library which is built on top of Tailwind CSS. So if I show you any of its component, let's see if we go on and click on this button right over here, you can see this is the button. And for the code of button, we have this over here. If you further scroll down, you can see how it can, make use of this button and a bunch of different things. Let me show you. So if I just install Tailwind CSS first by doing this, there we go. And then npx tailwind css init -p to install, to create a Tailwind config file right over here. Yep, just like this. And now after this, it says that add the following code to tsconfig.json. So we don't have tsconfig.json since we are not using TypeScript. So let's just create a jsconfig.json. So I'll create a new file called jsconfig.json. And inside this, simply I'm gonna copy this code right here. Cool. And then since we're not using TypeScript, we don't need all of this. We don't need these types. So if we go to vite.config.js, all we need to do is we need to copy this up and paste it right over here. Let's import this path from path, and this dir name I believe is already is a part of our node.js. So let's just don't give this error right over here. Okay, now after this we have to simply install Shadcn UI by doing this npx Shadcn UI at latest init. So I'll just paste it over here in the terminal, and it's gonna ask us a few questions. Would you like to use TypeScript? No. Which style would you like to use? I'll just keep it as default. Which color would you like to use? I'll keep slate. Where is your global CSS? So our global CSS is inside of the src/index.css. So I'll say src/index.css. Would you like to use CSS variables for colors? I'm gonna say yes. Are you using custom Tailwind prefix? Let's just leave this blank. Where is your tailwind.config.js located? It's right in the root, so I'll just press enter. Configure the import alias for components. Yes, let's just use this at component style of importing components. So I'll just press enter. Configure the import alias for utils. Yep, press enter. Are you using React server components? No, we are not using it, so I'll press no. Write configuration to components.json. Yes. Okay, so I guess it's installing Shadcn now. All the dependencies that it needs. Let's see. Yep, there we go. All right. So now let's go on and say npm run dev and run our project. And let's just say class name over here in the app.jsx just to see if our Tailwind is working fine or not. And I'm gonna give the class name of, let's say, text to Excel. So let's see. If I click on this link over here, there we go. It's working absolutely fine. All right, now let's go on and set up our backend, for which we are going to be using something called Supabase. So I'm gonna go to Google and search Supabase, and actually let's just go to supabase.com directly, and over here you can see Supabase is an open source Firebase alternative. Awesome. So let's click on start your project, and Supabase makes it so much easier to build the backend for our web apps. So let's continue with GitHub, and there we go, we are in. You can see I've already created one project for URL Shortener, and what you want to do, you want to create a new organization over here. You can name whatever you want for this organization. Let's say Piyush. Type of the organization, you can keep it personal and just keep it free, and click on create organization. After that, it will ask you to create a new project. Let's just name this project trimmer. It's gonna ask you to generate some database password. So you can keep it whatever you want over here. So let me just quickly enter it, and let's click on create new project. Great. So this is setting up the project for us. So what we want to do quickly, we have this API key over here, right? So let's just copy this API key, and I'll go to my project and create a new file over here called .env for our environment variables, and I'll paste this key right over here since we are going to be needing it for fetching the data. So let's just name this key. I'm going to name it Vite Supabase key, and make sure your key name starts with Vite. That's the convention. And it has also given us this URL, Supabase URL. This is where we will be making all of our API calls. So there we go. Let's copy it, and I'll paste it right here as well. So Vite Supabase URL. There we go. So let's just close this, and if I go back, you can see it has set up our project. And if you click on this connect over here and click on app frameworks, let's select React, and you can see it has given us this code which we can use to connect Supabase with our React.js app. So let's just, and actually I'll just select Vite over here. Yeah, okay, so now we've gotten this code. So let me explain what's going on over here. First of all, I'll go back to my project and create a new folder over here called db. And inside this, I'll create a new file called supabase.js. Here I'll paste that code. So simply what it's doing is it's taking this create client from supabase/supabase-js, which we need to install as well. So let's just open a new terminal, and I'll say npm install this, right? So after that, it's taking the URL that we've taken in the .env and the Supabase key, and then it's creating a new client that is a new connection to our database from this app, right? Awesome. So let's just close this file over here, and if we go back to our Supabase, and you can see there's this table editor. Just click on this, and now you'll be inside of this database. Here you can create a new table. So let's think about it. So inside of our app, we need to create a table for our URLs and the clicks, right? So let's create a new table. Let's name this table as URLs. This will store all of our URLs, and make sure to enable row level security. I'll explain what this is later on, right? And over here we need to add all of the columns. So what do you think? What's going to be? Obviously it's going to be having an ID, a created at field. Okay, it's going to have a field for original URL, where we will store the original URL where we're supposed to go, right, when we enter short URL. And this is going to be basically a text. Then we're gonna be having a short URL, which is also going to be a text. Then we are going to be having a custom URL, just in case user wants some, let's say trimmer.com/Piyush or roadside quote or whatever they want to keep it. This is also going to be a text. Then we want to associate this particular URL with a user ID, right, to which user this belongs. So I'll say user_ID, and this will be a UUID type. And let's just remove this generate random UUID whatever, because we are going to connect this to, like, this is going to be a foreign key. If you know something about SQL, this is what Supabase uses in the backend, right? It uses a Postgres database. So basically a foreign key is something that it's related to some other table, right? So when we click on over here, it's gonna ask us which table does this foreign key exist. Like in the user table, this will be a primary key, right? So if I click on select a schema and click auth over here, so basically we will set up an authentication which Supabase handles right out of the box, which I'll show you in just a moment. And click on over here, select the table to reference to. I'll select user. So this will be a default table that Supabase will create for us. So the user ID will be related to the ID of that table, right? That's it. Let's click on save. Then after that, we can also have a title for our URL, right, which is going to be a text. And also one more thing, this custom URL, we have to make sure that this is unique. So I'll just press on over here in settings icon and press is unique, so that no one enters same custom URLs. Then after that, we will have one field where we'll be storing our QR code, and this will be a text because this is also going to be a URL. Right, let's click on save. I guess that's pretty much it. Great, our URL has been created successfully. Let's create a new table for our clicks. So basically for each and every click that will happen on that particular URL, we will store multiple different information about that click. Like for example, on which device it was, from which city was it clicked, from which country it was clicked, right? When was it? What was the time that it was clicked? How many times that URL was clicked, right? All of these things. So for all of those things, we will be needing this clicks table right over here. So inside of this, also make sure you have checked this enable row level security. Inside of this, I'm gonna add a column for URL ID, because this is what we will be using for seeing to which URL does this click belongs to. So I'll click on over here and select a schema. So we will select okay, it will be public and URLs. So instead of URLs, we will select the ID, because this URL ID will be related to the ID of a particular URL which is already there, right? And also what we want to do, action if the referenced row is removed. What if that URL is removed from our database, right? We want to remove all of the clicks related to it. So what we want to select is cascade over here, so that we can remove all of these clicks as well, and click on save. Then we will have a field for city. We will be storing a city for every single click, so this will be a text. Then we will have a device column, and we will have a country. Both of these will be text as well. All right, and click on save over here. All right, great. So now that our backend is set up, before starting our front end, I will set up our Hostinger account where we will be hosting our app. So you can see I have hosted this app on trimmer.in, right? So if you click the first link in the description down below, you will land on this page right here. And Hostinger is the only brand in India to provide affordable hosting with great features like free domain, email, unlimited SSL, etc. And the best part is that they have a new data center in Mumbai now, so that we can get great speed and uptime. So let me just click on this claim deal, because this is the best plan that's been going on for Hostinger, and click on add to cart. And you're going to be routed to this page where you can choose your plan. I would recommend, if you're just getting started, you can either go for 12-month plan or 24-month plan. But if your pocket allows, definitely you can go for 48-month plan, because this is the most affordable plan out there. with just 149 rupees per month. So let me just choose at least 12 months plan over here to get a maximum discount, which we can see is 63%. And not just this, I've got you guys sorted with my own discount coupon. So if you click on over here, have a coupon code and just enter roadside coder and click on apply. Boom, you get additional discount over here, additional 10% discount. And now you guys can quickly come on over here and fill your details and just click on submit secure payment to get your premium web hosting plan. Alright, so we are inside of our dashboard now, and let's quickly claim our domain. So I'm gonna enter roadsidecoder.in, and you can see we have a bunch of different domains over here to choose from. So let's click on check availability, and yep, our domain is available. Let's claim the domain. Let's just complete the registration by entering that this is my personal domain. Let's enter my details. And after you're done, just click on finish registration and it's going to show you the summary of your details. Click on this checkbox and complete registration. There we go. Our domain has been secured. We can just skip over here, and here it is. Here's the dashboard for our domain. Now this might take some time, like 10 to 20 minutes to get your domain secured for Hostinger. So meanwhile, let's go on and set up our premium web hosting. And it's gonna ask me a few questions. So let's just give me this for me. I want to create a website. What do you want to create a website with? You can also choose Hostinger's website builder if you want. So I'm gonna skip that for now. And I'll choose my roadsidecoder.in domain. Let's select my country, which is already selected, India. And now it's gonna be initializing our website for us. And there you go, we're done with it. And you can see over here, it's gonna show us that our domain is being connected. It might just take around 12 minutes.
A few moments later.
And great, our domain is connected. You can see our website is running smoothly. They also have a 30 days money back guarantee and a great 24/7 customer support in case you get stuck anywhere in this process. So okay, let's go back to our React app, and we're gonna come back to Hostinger when we have to host our app. So first of all, in the app.jsx, since this is going to be a multi-page app, right? We're gonna be having React Router DOM to create those multiple pages. So I'll say npm install React Router DOM, and make sure to compare the version of React Router DOM I'm using over here if you're following this tutorial in the future. And make sure you install that by doing npm install React Router DOM @ whatever the versions over here, like in this case it's 6.23.1. Alright, cool. Let's go back to our app.jsx, and over here I'm going to be creating a new router. So I'll say const router equals create browser router. Now there are multiple ways to creating a browser router or a router. I'll use the very modern way of doing this, that is by using this create browser router function, right? And inside this we will take an array of the routes basically, right? So inside this there will be an object, and it will take the element and the children that will be inside of this, which will be an array. Right, so what is going to be the element? So this one basically is going to be for our layout. So this will be our app layout, which will wrap our app. That is, this one will contain the header and footer. So I'll create a new folder over here for our layouts, and inside this I'll create a new file called app-layout.jsx, and simply inside of it I'll say RAFCE and app layout. Now over here inside of this div, I'll simply have a main tag, and inside this we will have the header and rest of our body. Cool. And after this main tag we will have our footer, right? We will come back to this and build this very soon. Let's copy this app layout and import it right over here, just like this. Great. Now inside this children, let's decide how many pages are going to be there. First of all, there's going to be our landing page or our home page, right? Which will have the path of just slash, right? And it will contain the element of our landing page. So landing page, just like this. You know what, let's just go on and create all of these pages, all of like files for all of these pages, right? So inside of this pages folder, I'll create all of these files, like for our landing page.jsx, landing.jsx, and I'll have our AFCE. Let's call it landing, and let's copy it multiple times over here. Okay. And for each and every one of these, I'll have auth. There's going to be a page for authentication, right? I'll have a dashboard page. I'll have a page for our link, and then we will have a page where user basically gets redirected when it visits a short link, right? So I'll have a redirect link page as well. Awesome. Let's just go on and rename the components real quick. So auth for this one, dashboard, landing is already fine for our link, and then for our redirect link. Okay, now coming back to our app.jsx, let's import this landing page. Let's see. Okay, we've named it landing. No worries, let's just call it landing page. Then after this, I'll just duplicate it multiple times. Let me just close this terminal, or let's just switch to this terminal. Okay, now after this, we will have a /dashboard path as well, right? Which will be for our dashboard. Then we will have a page for our authentication. So I'll just name it auth. Let's import this page over here as well. Then we will have a page for /link / whatever's the ID is. So basically in this page, this link page, we will have all of the stats that we will see. Let's import it from make sure you import it from /pages /link and not from React Outer DOM. And we will have one page for our ID of a short link, basically where user will be redirected. So basically redirect link. And inside this link page, we will have all of the stats, all of the clicks that have happened yet for that particular link, and basically everything related to that link. And to create a dynamic URL, we will use this :id convention, right? This is basically a variable that we're using over here. Okay, so we have created all of our routes. So inside this router variable, and here in the return, now we will have something called router provider. And inside this, actually this is a self-closing tag. This will take a router prop, which I will give this router over here from this. Cool. Now let's go back to our app and see what's going on. If I refresh this, we can't see anything over here. Okay, and the reason for that is all of these pages are not rendering inside of this app layout. And to render them, simply we will have to use a tag called outlet. And basically this will result in all of those pages rendering over here. You can see if I go to /dashboard, you can see we are in the dashboard now. Great. So all of these pages are working. Let's quickly go on and build our footer as well. Let's just, for our main tag, I'll give the class name as minimum height to be screen, which will be around 100 viewport. And then we will have a container class so that it makes our website responsive. For our footer, I will have a div over here, which will say made with, and I'll add a heart emoji over here, made with love by roadside coder. Let's have a class name here with padding of 10. Text is going to be in the center. Background gray to be 800. Oops, it will be gray. And margin top to be 10. Okay, let's go back and see. This is our landing page, and here is our footer. And actually there's one issue over here with the, that's not an issue. It's for dark mode and light mode, which is configured by Shadcn UI. So you can see we have all these root styles, and then we have this dark mode styles. So what I want this app to be completely in the dark mode, right? So let's just remove this bracket over here, and let's merge these styles on the top with the root styles, right? And now if I go back, yep, you can see our app is completely dark with text color being default to white and background darker color, and you can see now it's much better. Okay, cool. Let's go on and build our header right over here. So inside this components, I'll create a new file for our header.jsx. And you might be thinking, when are we going to use Shadcn components? And yeah, we will be using it in our header. So let's create a new component over here, RAFCE header. Okay, and this header will have a nav tag that will surround it. And inside this, I will have a link tag which will contain basically the logo for my app, right? So I'll have a image tag with the src, and I've kept this logo inside this public folder. So if you also want this logo, you can go to my GitHub repository. Link will be in the description down below. So it's basically logo.png, and also there's a banner over here which I will also use. All of these are AI generated images that I've generated using ChatGPT. So I'll say /logo.png. Class name will be height of 16, and all text, let's keep trimmer logo. Okay, let's see. Oh, we haven't imported this component yet, so let's just take this and set up app layout. I'll have this header. Okay, let's see now. Alright, awesome. This looks perfect. Then below this, I'm gonna have a div which will contain our login button. So we're gonna be importing a button from Shadcn UI. So if we go over here and click on button, if you scroll down, you can see this is how you can add a button inside of our project. So if I go to terminal, let's click on a new terminal and just paste this code over here, and just paste this inside of our terminal and enter. You're gonna see inside of our components folder, it has created a UI folder, and inside of this it has imported this button component. You don't need to understand this. Is basically a scalable button component with a bunch of props like variants and text size and and other stuff. Right, so let's just close this, and over here I'll say button, and you can see it's importing from /UI/button. Okay, and let's say login, and let's save this and see how it looks like. Okay, this looks good. On click, what we want it to do is we want it to go to /auth. Also, one thing that I forgot to add over here, to /. When we click on this link, it should go to / only, right? When we click on this login button on click, it should go to auth, right? So how do we do this? Programmatical navigation. So we will use something called use navigate, which comes from React Router DOM. So I'll say const navigate, and we'll take this navigate, and over here I'll say navigate and /auth. Keep it in the just like this, and let's see. If we click on login, you can see we have been routed to auth. Awesome. Let's go back to our landing page. All right, over here in the nav, let me just add some class name of padding up down to be 4, which is around 16 pixels. Display flex, justify is going to be space between, justify content space between, and align items is going to be center. So let's see. Okay, this looks much better now. Amazing. But see, one thing, when we click on login, when we are logged in, it's gonna display that user's avatar over here, right? When we click on that, we will have a drop down with user will be able to log out, go to my links or whatever, right? So let's just create that over here as well. And for that, we're going to be needing something called a drop down from Shadcn UI. So over here, drop down menu, if we click on open, you can see it opens this drop down. So you see how many things that comes right out of the box from Shadcn UI. So let's just copy this and let's install this component as well, and we will build a drop down. And actually, let's create a const user, some dummy variable over here, user. We will create this logic later on. It's by default false, that it's not logged in. So over here I'll simply have user. If user is logged in, it's gonna show the drop down. So I'll just say not user. If user is not logged in, it's gonna show this button, else it's gonna show the drop down, which we will write right over here, right? So it's installed, you can see. So what we can simply do, we can go on over here and let's try to copy this code, right? Let's just copy this whole code and see what do we get over here. Let's import it. So from /./UI, make sure you're importing from ./UI only and nothing else. Okay, let's import all of this one by one, and yeah, awesome. Let's go and see inside of our app. Oh, we need to make user as true. Let's make this true now. Let's refresh our app. Okay, let's click on open. You can see we have this beautiful drop down over here. Amazing. So let's make some changes to this. Inside of our drop down trigger, we are going to show the avatar image of the user, right? And that will come from this component right over here, this avatar component that we get. Either we can build this UI, but that's going to be too much code, right? Since we're already using Shadcn UI, let's just install this avatar and we will display it right over there. So we can say add avatar, and again you can see things are adding inside this UI folder over here. There we go. Awesome. So let's go on and use this avatar component. So how do we use this? We can just copy this code and paste it over here. So basically we have an avatar component, and then we have an avatar image, and then we have a fallback UI that we're supposed to display if we don't have anything. So let's just say PA for Piyush Agarwal, and SRC, let's just keep the image by default, right? Let's go back and see. Okay, awesome. So far so good. Now coming down, we have a drop down menu trigger where we kept our avatar, and then after this we will have a drop down menu content. Inside of this we will keep all of our content. So basically, let's just, instead of this my account, I'll just say Piyush Agarwal for now. Then after this, we don't have any profile, we don't have any billing. Let's just have my links option, and then we will have a logout option over here as well. Now let's go back and see. We click on it. Great. Let's just make this logout red. Right. So I'll add a class name over here of text red 400. And actually, I'll be having an icon over here as well. So Shadcn UI comes with an icon pack as well. So if you go to package.json, you can see Lucid React, right? So from here, I can import a logout icon. So you can see logout, and let's just give this a class name of margin right to 2, height to 4, and width to 4. And I'll wrap this logout in a span tag. Let's see now. All right, this looks much better. Let's do the same for my links as well. So for my links, I'll add an icon over here called link icon, and let's import it by pressing Control space and link icon. Similar styles, right? Let's go back and see. Awesome. For our drop down menu trigger, I'll have a class name of width 10, rounded full, and overflow hidden, so that we can see proper no outlines over here just for that avatar. Okay, great. So we have built our header now. Let's go on and build our landing page, that beautiful landing page that I showed you at the beginning of this video. So if I go back to our pages and landing.jsx, and for building this landing page, I'm going to be needing two components from Shadcn UI. So let's just install them first. So if I go to Shadcn UI, and first of all, we're going to be needing an accordion component for displaying our FAQs. So if I click on accordion, you can see we have this accordion. So we're going to be needing this. So let's just copy it and paste it over here. And we're also going to be needing the input component to take the input of the long URL. So, okay, let's just copy this as well, paste it over here. And let's see, inside of our UI, we have the accordion and the input. Great. So inside of over here, inside of this div, first of all, I'll be having a heading, which will say the only URL shortener you will ever need. So over here, you can either use this, but this will show us this error over here. So I'm using this code to display the symbol, right? So let's see. Okay, for this heading, I'm going to give it a class name of margin vertical to be 10. When the screen size is bigger than smaller screen size, it's going to be 16. The text in the smaller screens will be 3XL, that is 30 pixels. And when it's bigger than smaller screens, it's going to be 6XL, right? So we're basically making it responsive by adding these breakpoints over here. When it's bigger than larger screen, it's going to be 7XL. So I'll show you in just a moment. We're going to be having text as white, text is going to be in center, and font is going to be extra bold. So if I go back, you can see, if I make this responsive, you're going to see as it becomes less than larger screens, it became smaller than the SM breakpoint. You can see. Great. So we have added the responsiveness over here using Tailwind CSS, which is so much easier. Below this, I'll have a form which will contain our input tag. So just remove this action, and inside this, I'll have the input tag that we installed from Shadcn UI. So let's import that, and we will have the button from Shadcn UI as well. Let's go back and see. Okay, we can't really see much over here. We have to give the button, let's say, shorten, which will be for shortening our URL. And below this, I'll have a banner that I showed you earlier, that banner that we have kept inside of our public folder, banner.jpg or jpg. So I'll say /banner.jpg. Let's give alt tag of banner, and I'll have a class name. Width is going to be full, margin vertical is going to be 11, and when the screen size is more than medium screens, which is around 768 pixels, it will be having a padding of horizontal of 11. Let's see. Okay, this looks awesome. And when it's smaller, you can see it's adapting to the screen size. Great. For our div over here, our parent div, I'll give some class name. Let me make this small. I'll give some class name of display flex direction to be column, and align items to be center. For our form over here, I'll say class name of, when the breakpoint goes more than smaller screens, that is 640 pixels, it's going to have height of 14. This will have display flex direction to be column, and when the screen size is more than the smaller screens, it's going to be flex row. So let me show you. So normally it's flex row, right? When it's smaller than the breakpoint, you're going to see we will make it flex column, right? For the bigger screens, flex row. Great. Width to be full, but in the bigger screens, width is going to be 2x4. That is, if you divide the screen into 4 parts, it's going to take 2 parts of that screen, right? You can see. And gap is going to be 2 between them, you can see. All right, awesome. For our input, I'll have the type as URL. Placeholder is going to be enter your long URL. On change, I'll have a state over here in just a moment. And we will have class name of height full, flex to be 1 so that it takes up all the space. Let me just comment it out for a moment. Padding vertical to be 4, padding horizontal to be 4. So let me see. You can see, right? For our button as well, let's give the height to be full, right? So I'll just say height full. It's going to be type of submit. And we have multiple different variants as well for this button, which comes out of the right out of the box from Shadcn UI. So I'll just give it destructive. So if you click on this button over here, you're going to see we have a bunch of different variants like ghost, link, secondary, outline, etc. right? So I'll just give it destructive, which will show red. I think it's variant. Okay, no S. Okay, this looks good. Below this image, I'll have the accordion. So if I go back to Shadcn UI to the accordion page, we have this code over here, right? Let's just copy this code up and I'll paste it right over here. Let's take all of this imports as well and I'll paste it over here. Okay, let's see if this is rendering. All right, this is rendering. We need to add some additional styles, obviously. So let's see. We will have multiple accordions inside of this. So let's keep the type as multiple. It's going to be collapsible and the class name will be width to be full. And when the screen size is more than medium, I'll have some padding of 11. Okay, nice. Let's add multiple accordions inside of it. So you can add according to you. Like for example, for the first item, I'll say how does the trimmer URL shortener works? And you can give some content over here. And similarly, I'll be adding 2 more items over here. So below this, just like this, right? You can keep it, you can add whatever you want. Doesn't really matter. And let's go back and see. Great. This makes our app look much more professional. Amazing. So now let's go on and add the state for this input, right? And when we click on the shorten, we want it to be routed to auth if the user is already not logged in. So here I'll take use state, which is used for creating states in React, right? And this gives us an array. So const array, and this gives us 2 things. One is going to be a variable, which I'll name as long URL. Another is going to be a function, which is used for setting that URL. So set long URL, all right? And make sure you're importing it from React. So I'll take this set long URL and inside of our input for on change, I'll say on change, it's going to take the event and it's going to say set long URL to e.target.value and change that URL. Let's take this long URL variable and set it as a value over here. Now, when we click on this button, what do you want to do? So let's see. Let's say I add a link over here. Let's just take a link to my YouTube channel and paste it over here. When we click on this shorten, what I want to do is I want it to go to auth with a create new variable and this link. So whenever user logs in, it's going to continue the flow and asks user to create a new link, right? Just like I showed you at the beginning of the video. Okay. So what I'll do, I'll have and not over here actually in the form, I'll say on submit. On submit, I'll call a function called handle shorten, which obviously doesn't exist yet. So const handle shorten, and inside of this I'll say e.prevent default. Let's take the event over here, and below this I'll check if the long URL is there. So if long URL is there, I'll just route it. So I'll take the use navigate, and I'll take this navigate function over here and I'll say go to /auth, and I'll take it inside of backticks actually, so that we can include the variable. So auth and create new equals this long URL right here. Okay, this should do it. Let's go back and check. So let's take this link over here. Let's go back to our home page. Let me remove all of this. Okay, let's enter our long URL and press on shorten. You can see it goes to /auth with this search param. Alright, so cool. We have successfully created our landing page over here and it looks beautiful. Let's now work on the user authentication part, right? Which we just saw. If I click on shorten, we will go to the /auth, or over here as well, when we click on login, we will go to this route. So let's just make the, the header. In the header, let's make this as false so that we can see that login button over here. Alright, cool. Now, let's go back to our Supabase and set up our authentication. So you can see we have this authentication tab over here, and inside of the providers, we will add the email login. So you can see it's already enabled. You can also add a Google login or GitHub login or whatever. Just to keep things simple, I'll just add the email login and just uncheck this confirm email, so that simply we can just add a email, password, sign up and login functionality. Let's go back to our app, to the auth.jsx page, and over here we're going to be needing a tabs component for displaying both login and sign up. So if we go to Shadcn and we have a tabs, right, you can see just like this. This is exactly what we will be needing over here. So I'll just take this, I'll say npx Shadcn UI latest add tabs. It's going to be adding a tab inside of our UI. There we go. And over here inside this div, I'll have a heading h1 which will say login/signup. I'm gonna have some class name over here with text of 5XL and font to be extra bold. Let's see. Okay, cool. For our parent div, I'll have class name of margin top to 36, which is around 144 pixels, display flex direction to be column, align items to be center, and some gap between whatever that we'll be keeping inside of it, right? So if we see, great, this looks good. Now, one thing that I want to do over here, if there's a search param on the URL, like create new, right? So we just don't want to show login sign up. I'm gonna say to the user, hold up, you need to log in first, and then you can continue the flow, so that user understands that they need to log in, right? So I'll use a hook from React.DOM called use search params, and this actually gives us two things inside of an array. One is a variable, another is for setting that variable, but we're not gonna be needing a setter function, so I'll just have a search params variable from this, and simply over here inside of curly braces, I'll say search params dot get, and I'll get that variable which is create new, and I'll say hold up, let's log in first, or I'll say this thing login/sign up. Okay, cool, this should work now. Let's go back and see. If I go to my home page and let's take any URL, paste it over here and click on shorten, you can see, hold up, let's log in first. If I remove this from over here, we're just gonna see login/sign up. Awesome. Let's add the tabs between this and the login and sign up functionality. So I'll go back to over here Shadcn UI, and let's take this code from tabs and paste it right over here. Let's take the import as well, and let's see what do we get. Okay, we have this account and password right here. What we want is login and sign up, right? So by default it will be login, and we will have two things, login and sign up. Here I'll write login, below this I'll write sign up. Inside the tabs content, we will have separate tabs content for both of them. First will be for login and second will be for sign up. So let's just say login component over here, and below this I'll have a sign up component, right? Class name, that's fine, we'll keep it 400 pixels. For our tabs list, I'll just say display grid, width to be full and grid columns to be 2. Okay, let's see now. Okay, this looks much better, right? Now all we have to do is create the component for login and sign up below this, and for that I'll create separate components for both of them. Inside of our components, I'll have a file for login.jsx and signup.jsx. For login, I'll say rafce login. Same for sign up as well. So rafce sign up. Let's quickly import both of them inside of over here login and over here sign up. Let's just check if it's still working. Yes. Okay. So now what's going to happen is we're going to be creating the API for login and sign up. And for that, we'll be needing to interact with our database, right? So inside this DB folder, I'll create a new file called API auth.js. Inside this, we will keep all of our logic related to our login and sign up and everything, right? So here I'll import Supabase, which is going to be coming from this Supabase file that we created a while ago, right? And also we're going to be needing this Supabase URL as well later on, not right now. So, but for now, I'll just say export const Supabase URL. For now, I'll just take this Supabase and I'll say export async function, and inside this function, let's just call it login. We will add the login logic, which will take an email and password, and which this will basically log our user in. First of all, what I want to do, I want to go back to my app over here in the authentication. We have this users table, right? We can actually manually add the user here as well. So let's click on add user and create new user. Let's add a user for Piyush at example.com. I'm going to keep the password 123456. Auto confirm. Let's create a user. Okay, so you can see we have a new entry in our database, and we can use this to test our login as well. Also, one more thing, when I turned off this confirm email, I forgot to click on save. So make sure you click on save over here. Okay, let's go back to our app, and now I'll say await, since we're going to be making a call to our database, right? And I'll say Supabase, and Supabase provides us a lot of things. So if we press dot over here, and one of those things is the auth function, which you can see auth allows you to create and manage the user sessions, right? So click on auth and sign in with password, right? That's what we want to do. And this will have an object which will take the email and the password, and this will give us two things. So const inside this curly braces, we will get the data and the error. I'll say if there's an error, I'll throw new error with the error dot message, whatever the error is, right? And then I'll say return the data if there's no error. So return data. Awesome. Cool. Let's go back to our login.jsx component, and inside this div, we're going to be needing multiple things over here. Like if I go back to Shadcn UI, we have this example over here, right? This is basically a card component. So let's take a card component from Shadcn UI. So yep, you can see a card component. Let's install this card component. So npx Shadcn UI latest add card. Also, I'm going to be showing a loading indicator over here as well when we are logging in. So I'm going to be using something called as React Spinner. So if you just search it on Google, there it is, React Spinners. To install it, we simply have to do yarn add React Spinners or npm install React Spinners. So I'll say npm install React dash spinners actually. And also for validating our input fields for login and sign up, we're going to be using something called as yup library, which helps us in basically adding input validation. I've created a complete tutorial on this on my channel. I'll add the link for that in the description down below. So okay, both of these are installed. Now let's go on and see an example of this card component that we're talking about. So let's just copy this card component and just paste it right over here. Let's take all of the imports and let's see. So this is a card component. Inside this, we have a card header where we have a card title. Okay, let's just call it login, and a card description, which I'll say login to your account if you already have one. So let's see, how does this look like? Okay, to your account if you already have one. Let's add some card content. And for the card content, first of all, I'll have some class name of space y of 2, which basically is going to be adding some margin top and bottom to it. Then inside this, I'll remove this paragraph and have a div with again space y1. So basically this is going to be an individual input, this for containing an individual input tag, right? And here I'll have a input. Let's import it from our UI. This will have name of email, type of email, and some placeholder of enter email. Let's see. Okay, looks good. Let's just duplicate it, and we will have a for a password. So password and enter password. Let's see. Okay, looks good. Inside of our card footer, I'll have a button for login. Let's see. Okay, looks good. And actually, when this is logging in, when the API call is being made, I will show that spinner that I installed. So we'll have a loading indicator. Let's just keep true by default. So if it's true, I'll have a beat loader, and you can check the documentation for React Spinner to know more about it. Else I'll have a login. So login. For this beat loader, I'll say size to be 10 and some color, which I'll keep this. Let's see, is it imported or no? Yeah, okay, this is working. Looks good. Now whenever like we are going to be adding validation over here as well, right? So we'll be showing some error over here, and we're going to be using this error component for like in multiple places. So let's just create a new component for displaying the error. So let's create a new file for error.jsx, RAFCE error. And basically it's going to be a very simple error component. This will take a message and we will just render that message over here, and it will have a class name. So let's just make this span actually, and this will have a class name of text small, text red to 400. Great. Let's just take this error and import it right over here. So error, let's just add some random message. Let's just import it first. Yeah, message to be some error. Let's add this over here as well. Okay, fine. We will add proper error message over here in just a moment. And also we will have an error message over here inside of our header as well for overall login error. Like for example, if some login doesn't get matched, like for example if there's some wrong password or email, then it will show up. All right, cool. So what I'll do, I'll just create state for this first. So use state for our form data, and by default this will have email empty and password empty. Okay, let's import use state. We will also have a handle input change function, which we will use for changing all of our inputs, right? So inside of this, I'll take an event e.target, and from inside of it I'll take out the name and the value. So const name comma value for that particular input field, right? And right below this I'll say set form data. We will take whatever the previous state is, we will spread the previous state, and I'll set the new state. That is, if it's, let's say if it's email, so for email field I'll put the value. If it's password, for password field I'll put the value. So I'll take this handle input change, and for both of these inputs I'll add this on change over here for this one as well. Okay, cool. Let's work on validating these inputs. For that I'll have a function called handle login, right, which we will run when we click on the button, the login button, this one. So on click is going to be handle login. Now inside of this handle login, first of all I'll set all of the errors to null. So let's just create a state first of all for storing all of our errors related to input validation. So I'll say errors, which by default will be an empty array, and I'll show you how I have taken this as an array. So for by default it's gonna be an empty array. When we initiate handle login, I'll have a try catch block, because this is where we will make the API call as well. So first of all I'll check, I'll create a schema. So const schema for validating our inputs. So I'll say yup dot object, and let's just import yup as well. So I'll say import star as yup from yup. Okay, so I'll say yup dot object dot shape, and we'll provide whatever the things that we are going to be giving inside of our inputs. First of all is going to be email, another is going to be password, right? So for our email, what is going to be? So it's going to be yup dot string. So it's going to be a string, right? And also it is going to be an email, so it comes inbuilt from this. And if it's not an email, I'm gonna say invalid email, and also this is required as well. But if it's not provided to us, I'll say email is required, right? So let's just copy this up and I'll paste it over here in our password. So this is going to be, so let's see our password. Let's just keep it very simple. I'll just say this has to have at least minimum 6 characters, right? So I'll add a condition that minimum it's going to have a 6 characters, else it will give an error. Password must be at least 6 characters, and this is required. So I'll just keep it over here, password is required. And now after this I'll say await schema that we have created over here, schema dot validate, and we will validate this. And since you're using await over here, this is going to be an async function. So I'll say schema dot validate form data, comma, abort early to false. Okay, cool. So this will basically validate our form right over here. And this abort early, this means that return from validation methods on the first error rather than all the validation run. Okay, after this we will make our API call, which I'll hold just for a second. Let's just add a validation logic first, right? And inside this catch, to catch the errors related to our validation, I'll just say const new errors equals empty, and we will say e.inner, because this is the inner object that is provided to us, by yup when it throws an error. And we will for each and catch all of the errors related to our email, password, and everything. We will add it inside this new error and set the new error. Let's try this out. Let's see if it's working or not for over here, both of our errors. Let me just make this dynamic. So first of all, for our email, I'll first check, is the errors.email exist? Then show this. Same for our password. I'll say if error.password exists, then show this, and message will be errors.password. Let's see. So I'll just enter some random stuff over here and over here as well. Click on over here. You can see invalid email, password must be at least 6 character. If I make this 6 character, press over here, you can see that is gone, but this is showing up over here. If I say piyush@example.com, press over here, you can see all of the errors are gone. Amazing. Let's add the logic for logging in. Now, you might already know, when we make an API call, right, there are multiple things involved. Like we have to handle the loading stuff as well, like before and after the API call is made to just display the loader. And we have to handle the errors as well and everything, right? So we have to do that again and again throughout this project. So instead of that, let's create a hook over here. So not inside the components, inside the SRC, I'll have a hooks folder, and I'll create a new hook for handling our API calls called useFetch.jsx. We're going to be creating a custom hook over here, right? And it's going to be very simple. Let me just quickly bring the code for this in, and I'll show you. So here it is. See, it's just a normal function called useFetch, and it's taking a callback function and the options related to it, right? So what we're doing, we're creating a 3 states inside of it: data, loading, and error, right? All of them are null by default. Then we will have a function const fn, which is going to be an asynchronous function. We're setting loading and error to true by default, just like we do before, fetching some API. Then inside the try catch block, we will say const response. It could be whatever, right? This callback, it doesn't know. It's a scalable custom hook, right, for fetching our API. So we will provide the options that we're getting from over here, and we will provide some additional options from the args, because this is what we will send to the user in the end. You can see data, loading, error, and so we will take that and put it over here. Now, whatever response that we get, we will set it inside the data. We will set the error to null after this is done. And actually that is already been done over here, so I don't really think we need to do this again. In the catch block, I'm going to say set error to error. And finally, we will set the loading to false. This will run no matter if it goes to catch or try. So we're going to be using this useFetch hook to, fetch our APIs and all. I have covered a lot of such custom hooks like use counter, use debounce, use fetch, use intersection observer, use local storage, use window size. A lot of these which are asked in our interviews a lot in my front-end interview preparation course. So make sure you click the link in the description down below and check out this course. This is the only thing that you will ever need to prepare for your front-end interviews. And not only this, I've covered every single topic of React.js, like React Router DOM, Redux, all of the hooks, class-based component, function-based component React, even the performance optimization, which is asked from senior developers a lot, tons of machine coding questions as well, and obviously in-depth interview preparation course on JavaScript as well. So all of this you get in one single course. So click the link in the description down below, because right now we're having the biggest sale of the year for a very limited time. So don't forget to check it out. Or you can also scan this QR code on your screen to go directly to the course page. All right, let's close this. And right over here, I'll use the useFetch hook. So import it, and this will take 2 things. One is a callback. So I'll provide it with this callback login, right, that we have created, login, and it will take the options. So I'm going to be providing it with email and password, basically our form data, right? So I'll say form data, and let's just import this login as well, right? Okay, it's imported. And this will provide us with multiple things that we've already seen, like data, error, loading, and the actual function that we will be calling if we want to log in or whatever, like we want to make the API call, right? Let's just rename this function to be fn login. So now after this schema dot validate, what I'll do for our API call, I'll say await fn login, and basically when this is called, it will take this form data, go inside the login, provide it to the Supabase, and if there's an error, it will throw the error, else it will return the data. Okay, so far so good. Let's just create a use effect over here, and this will run only if the data or the error will change. So use effect, let's import that. Okay, so I'll say if there's no error, right? If error is null and the data is there, only then run whatever's we want to keep inside of over here. And actually, let's just for a second, let's just comment it out, and I'll just console log the data over here, just the data, right? Just to see how is it working. Let's just take this loading and provide it over here instead of this just the true, right? And over here we have this error message, right? Dummy error message. Instead of that, I'll take this error that has been provided to us by useFetch, and I'll say if the error is there, then render error dot message. I think this should do it. Let's go back and see. There might be some issue over here. Supabase URL is required. What do you mean by that? Let's see. So inside of our supabase.js, Supabase URL is there. Okay, I think we have misspelled this. So it will just be wheat Supabase key, because that is what we have given inside of our .env, right? I made a mistake. This .env file should be in our root. I have placed it inside of src. So now I think it's fine. The server is restarted. Let's see if it's working fine or not. Okay, cool. Let's just try to log in. So I'll just try to log in Piyush at example.com, that example use that we created 1 2 3 4 5 6, and click on login. Okay, great. Our user login is working absolutely fine. Amazing. So when we are successfully logged in, I'll do something. So I'll say if there is no error and data is also there, then I will route them to our dashboard page, right? So simply I'll take the use navigate hook from React Router DOM, and also we will take these search params, because there can be a case where user has this create new search param on the URL, right? And we want to route them to the dashboard with that particular search param, because we want to create a new URL now after they are logged in. So let's just say I'll just take a variable over here, long link equals search param dot get this create new, right? And then we will navigate them. So if this is the case, if the error is null and data is there, I'm going to say navigate to /dashboard, and if the long link is there, I'll say create new with the long link, else it will be empty, right? Simple. Also, you can see after it's logged in, it gives us all of this variety of different data like email confirmed at. We will have a user metadata object as well. We will keep our profile picture and name of the user over here when we will go on and sign up. So we'll talk about that in just a second. And also, if you go to the storage, in the local storage, you're going to find the user logged in, the data related to the user that is logged in. So for now, I'll just keep it, I'll just delete it. Let's try to enter the wrong email, right? So I'll say piyush2@example.com. Let's click on login, and we will see invalid login credentials. Amazing. So all of these error handling is also working flawlessly. Okay, now let's go on and work on our user sign up. But before that, let's just create a context or state management for our app, which will handle the state of our user, because this is what we're going to be needing in multiple different places inside of our app, right? So let's just create a use the context API and create the context for our app. So inside the src, I'll create a new file called context.jsx, and inside this we will fetch current user session who is logged in. So inside of our API auth as well, here we will have another function. So export async function called get current user, and all this will do is it will just fetch it from our local storage and show it to us, which is the user that is currently logged in. So I'll say const, and I'll say await Supabase, and we don't have to actually do ourselves like get item from local storage and all of that will be done by Supabase. So supabase.auth, and simply we have a function called get session, right? which will return us the data, which let's just call session over here, and the error as well. Let's first check if there's any session or not. If there's no session, so session.session, we're gonna say return null, right? We're gonna check for our error as well. So if there's any error, I'm gonna throw new error. But if everything is fine, I'll just simply say return session.session.user. Okay, we're gonna be using this for fetching the user in our context API. And also, if you don't trust local storage for some reason, if you want to fetch the brand new user from the database, you can use get user, and it will fetch the very latest details for the user from our database. But I'm not using this. I'm going to be using my local storage only after the user has logged in to get the session. Okay, let's go inside the context.jsx, and I'll create a new const URL context equals create context, and this will come from React. Oh, why is it coming like this? I need to have import create from React, and I want create context. Okay, let's make sure that this is inside of the src. Okay, fine. After this, I'll have const URL provider, which will take the children, and actually we will wrap our whole app in this URL provider. So I'll say children and return URL context that we've created over here dot provider. So these are the things that you have to do one time, to set up our context API, and we will wrap the children object or children node over here, right? And I'll export default URL provider. Okay, let's take this URL provider, go to app.jsx, and I'll wrap whole of my app inside of this. So return URL provider and wrap our app inside of it. Let's just import it as well. Cool. Now let's go back, and over here I'll simply fetch our get current user that we've created. So I'm going to be using useFetch that we've created, the custom hook, right? Get current user. I'll say const, and this will give us obviously data, which I'll call user. I'll have loading, and I'll have the function that we'll be calling. So let's just call this function fetch user. So we can call this function wherever we want to fetch the user, right? Okay, let's have a variable over here, const is authenticated, which will just check if the user.role is equals to authenticated or not, right? This will just to check if the user is currently logged in. So we've taken a boolean value over here, and after that I'll have a use effect which will say fetch user, right? Let's import the use effect, and this fetch user, this u will be capital, right? Okay, so whenever our app loads for the very first time, this will run every single time on every single page, right? Just to take the session of the user, and I'll say value equals, and I'll provide this to our app, right? All of these things, the user, fetch user, loading is authenticated, so that we can use them wherever we feel like using them, right? Okay, cool. Also, to access this data, every single time what user will have to do, user will have to use this use context hook, and they will have to provide the URL context. So we will have to import two things like use context from React. So from here, use context from React, and we will have to provide the URL context. So instead of that, what I'll do, I'll just export a function, export const URL state, and I'll simply return this, so that every single time we just have to import this URL state, and we can access the state of our app. Great. Let's close this context, and then inside of the login, when the error is null and the data is there, that is, we have successfully logged in, right? What we want to do is I'll just call that fetch user function from our URL state, right? So I'll take the URL state that we've created, I'll say const, and I'll take the fetch user function, fetch user, and I'll call it right over here. So fetch user. Great. Now let's go on and work on our sign up logic. So how user can sign up inside of our app, right? So first of all, I'm going to go to this API auth.js and create a new API. So I'll just say export async function sign up, right? And this sign up will take multiple things like name, email, password, profile pic. So now you might be thinking that we're going to be using profile pic, right? So where will we be storing our profile pic inside of our database, right? So if I go back to Supabase, we have this storage option over here on the side. Just click on it. And we're going to be creating a new storage bucket. So by default, I think we have somewhere around 1 GB of storage space, which is enough for this project, more than enough. So name of the bucket, I'll keep profile underscore pic. It is going to be a public bucket. Okay, let's save this. Okay. Also, one more thing you might remember, we talked about row level security while creating the tables, right? So this also has row level security. And basically we need to add some policies over here. So I'll click on this new policy over here and click on for full customization. And what I'll do, I'll say anyone can insert. So insert and defaults to all public roles. Okay, anyone can select as well and can view. And update and delete, we're not going to be needing this. So let's just add these two rules over here. Okay, we need to provide the rule. Anyone can upload pic. Let's click on review and save the policy. Okay, great. Now let's go back to our API that we were building. And over here, we will have all of these 4 functions. So first of all, we will try to upload our profile pic. And to upload that, we'll say await supabase.storage. And this will have a function dot from, right? Where are we supposed to upload our profile pic? Similar pattern you'll see when we will go and create entries inside of our tables. So from profile underscore pic, I'm gonna upload, right? And we will provide the file over here. So it actually takes 2 things. One is the file name, another is this actual file. So let's just work on this file name. So I'll keep the file name as this. So file name equals, let's call it dp display pic dash, and inside this I'll keep the name of the user name dot split. I'll split the user's name from space, and then I'll say dot join using dashes. So if it's Piyush Agarwal, it will be Piyush dash Agarwal. And then I'll say dash math dot random, just in case 2 users have same name. I'll just generate a random number right over here. And then I'll say const, and this will provide us the data. And actually we don't need the data, we're just going to be needing the error, which I'll rename at error, or let's say storage error. And I'll check right here. If there's any storage error, then throw new error. Okay. Then after that, I'll again make an API call to our database. So await supabase.auth. And now this time we're going to be using the sign up function. So sign up, right? And you can see that this creates a new user. Okay. So inside this sign up, this will take an object, and it will take email, password, and then, so this takes the email and password over here. And then after that, I showed you that user metadata, right? If you're supposed to add something inside of it, it will take something called options, right? We can add whatever that we want inside of it about the user. So options, it will take the data, and inside the data, we will add the name of the user and the profile underscore pic for the user, right? So now we have to provide the path over here basically to that file, right? So first of all, it will be inside of Supabase URL. So let me just show you first actually. So if I go back to the database profile pic over here, let's just try to add some items. So I'll click on upload files, and I've selected a file over here which is uploading, and we will see the path. So if I click on get URL, and let's see the URL. Oops. Let's click on get URL and paste it over here. You can see we have the Supabase URL /storage/v1/object public profile pic, and then the name of the actual file, right? So that is exactly what we're going to do over here. So after this Supabase URL, I'll have /storage/v1 object public profile pic, and then the name of the file. So file name, right? So this is how we will store our profile pic so that we can access it later on. Then we will say const the object, which will provide us with the data and the error. And after that, we will check if there's any error. So right after this, I'll check if there's an error, throw new error, else we will return the data. Amazing. So this is how you create an API for signing up the user with the profile pic and everything. We're going to be using this inside of our component for sign up. So let's go on and build our UI for sign up. So signup.jsx. And actually this is going to be very similar to our login component. So what I'll do, I'll just copy this whole login component and paste it over here. First of all, we will edit the name of our component. So instead of login, I'll just say sign up here and at the very bottom as well. Okay, sign up, and let's just ignore all of these things for a moment here. So we have login. I'll just say sign up, and for the description I'll say create a new account if you haven't yet. We have email and password over here, so we will have one more field above it, which will be for our name. Type will be text and enter name. Then we will have email, that's fine. Password, that's fine. After this we will have, wait, one moment, for our error as well. Let's just edit it to be the name, right? Almost forgot that. And after the password we will have a file upload. So let's just duplicate this, and over here the name will be profile_pic. Type will be file, and instead of placeholder this will say accept. What is will accept is it will accept the image. So image /star. For handling the error as well, over here we will have profile pic. For our button we will show the same login. Instead we will just have handle sign up, and over here I'll have sign up, or actually I'll say create account. That looks better. What else? I think most of the things are absolutely the same. Let's work on the logic now. So at the very beginning we need to make change inside of our state. So our form data, where is it? Yeah, form data. So this will have two more things now. It will have the name, so name, and it will have the profile pic, which is null by default. Now there's one change that we have to make inside of handle input change. So we're just rendering the value over here, right? So this will also have one more field called files when we upload a pic inside of our profile pics field. So I'll check over here. If there's something inside of the files, I'll say files of 0, else this will be a value. Okay, now instead of login I'll have the sign up over here from our DB. So API auth, let's remove this login over here. Instead of fn login I'll just say fn sign up. Okay, below this, if the error is null and data is there, then do this. Okay, that's fine. You can keep over here like data and error, or you can also keep something like error and loading. Whenever the loading changes, right, you can use either of these. Instead of handle login I'll have handle sign up. Okay, let's see. Inside of this we have just validation for email and password. Let's add the validation for our name as well. So simply for our name I'll say yup.string, and required name is required. For our profile pic it will have yup.mixed, right? So it's of mixed type and it is required. Profile picture is required. Okay, and over here in the await I'll say sign up instead of login. I think everything looks good. We can try it out. Let's go. Let's try out the sign up flow. If we go to sign up over here, and also I think this is a little bit too low right now, so I'll just go to our auth page and I'll just say margin top to be 28 or probably 20. Yeah, that's better. Let's click on sign up. Let's create a new account. So I'll just say Piyush, and actually I'll just click on create account. You can see the validation is working. Let's click on file and let's select a file. Let's enter the email. So Piyush1@example.com, and password I'll keep for 1234556. Let's click on create account. We will open the console over here just to see if everything is fine, and network tab as well. Let's click on create account. It's loading, and let's see. Okay, it has routed us to the /dashboard. We have a post request made right here for sign up, and also for uploading of that profile picture. And I think everything's working fine right now. Let's just go on and see. If we go inside of our database, let's refresh it. Instead of our storage bucket, we have this profile pic uploaded. Yeah, it's loading. Great, it's working fine. Let's go and check our authentication. The users, there must be a new user created over here. Awesome, this is working fine. Let's click on view user info, and we must have name over here and the path to the profile picture. Amazing. Now what I want to do, I want to add a logic where if we are already logged in, we are not allowed to be on auth page, right? So I'll go to my auth page right here, and I'll use this search params.get. So I'll actually create a new variable over here for long link, search param.get. Let's just replace it with this, right? And I'll also take the use navigate to route our user, and from our URL state that we created, the context, I'll take two things. First, the is authenticated to see if the user is logged in or not, and the loading state as well. If it's fetching from our local storage, so it will show the loading indicator. Okay. Now inside the use effect hook, I'll say, let's import this first. Yeah, I'll say if is authenticated. If the user is authenticated and there is no loading, right? Loading is false. Then I will navigate the user, and I will navigate the user back to the dashboard. So let's just take this over here and I'll paste it here, right? Same thing. And I think this should be it. Let's go back and see. Yeah, if we try to go to the auth page, oh, it's working for some reason. Let's see. Why is that? Oh, it's because we have to add this in the dependency, right? Whenever this changes. So I'll add the auth, the loading. Okay. Let's try to go to the auth again. And now you'll see it doesn't allow us to go to the auth because user is logged in. All right. Same we will do with our /dashboard as well. If user is not logged in, we're not supposed to visit this /dashboard, right? So actually for this, I'll create a private route for our React routers, for routes over here basically. And I'll wrap these routes in that private route. So inside of our components, I'll create a new file called require auth.jsx, and this will be a very simple file. So let me just bring the code in for this and I'll explain you one by one. So basically require auth will take a component, or in this case a page, and we have this use navigate hook over here, and I'm taking out this loading and is authenticated just like over here in auth from URL state, and in the use effect I'm checking if the user is not authenticated and the loading is false, then navigate to /auth. That's all. And obviously I'm adding it to our dependencies as well. And while this is happening, while this is loading, I'm going to show the bar loader. And if the user is authenticated, then I'll return that particular route. Like for example, if we are on dashboard, then we will return the dashboard, right? Okay, let's take this require auth and wrap our app.jsx and actually the components in app.jsx in this. So require auth, and I'll put the dashboard just like this. Import this require auth, not with the auth, with the link as well. So for every single link, this comma shouldn't be here and neither here. Okay. Yeah, I think this should work. Let's see. So currently the user is logged in. Let me just remove it from our local storage, delete all. Now if I just refresh it, you're gonna see we're gonna be routed to auth since we are not logged in. Amazing. Now inside of our header, we have this static login button, right? We have to make sure we render the user's details when we are logged in. So let's go back to our header component. So header.jsx. First of all, over here, let's remove this user, right? And over here, I'll have this URL state context that we created, const curly braces, and we will have the actual user object and the fetch user function. We will take this user object, and inside of the user metadata is where we will find the name, right? So over here, I'll say instead of Piyush Agarwal, I'll say, user metadata and name. I'll just put the optional chaining over here so that we can see the name. If the user is there, if the user is not there, then we will show this. Let's see. Oh, we are not logged in, obviously. So piyush1@example.com. 1 2 3 4 5 6. Let's log in, and we can see over here. Awesome. We can see the name. So also we want to see my picture as well, not just that static pic. So in the src, I'll say user.usermetadata.profile pic. Let's go back and check. Yes, we can see the profile pic, but currently it's compressed for some reason. Let's just say class name and object fit contain. See? Yeah, now it's much better. Awesome. And then below over here, we have to add the logout logic. Yes. So on click over here, we will add the logic for logging out. And when the user has logged out successfully, so I'll navigate them to /auth, or probably to our home page as well, right? I think the home page will be better. So let's add the logic for logging out over here. So I'll go to my API auth right here, and I'll create a new function, export async function, and I'll call it logout. Instead of it, I'll say const and await Supabase dot auth dot sign out. Yeah, sign out. Okay, and I'll just take the error over here. Let's just take this, and I'll say if there's any error, just throw new error message. Let's take this logout right here, and over here I'll have the useFetch function that I was using. I'll provide it with this logout that we just created, and I'll take the loading from inside of it, loading, and the function for logout, so fn logout. Okay, so let's see. So I'll take this fn logout, and over here I'll say fn logout, and inside this, when this is logged out, and actually I'll say dot then just navigate to slash, and I'll have this loading indicator, and right at the bottom after this div I'll put this loading. If the loading is true, then we will show the bar loader. So let's see. Okay, let's refresh. Okay, let's just open our local storage just to check if it's working. Storage, local storage. I'll click on over here, click on logout. You can see we have this, oops, there's some UI is breaking over here. We'll fix that in just a moment. Okay, it's loading, and navigate us to slash. Yeah, it did. Let's see inside of our network. We made the API call to logout, and did we remove it from? Yeah, we removed it from local storage. Amazing. Let's just fix this UI breaking error like bug. So I'll keep it true by default. And also we're going to be calling this fetch user function as well right here before navigating, so that we can just fetch the user and show just login over here, right? So to fix this, what I'll do, I'll actually keep it outside of the nav bar. I'll have a fragment, and I'll take this fragment, and all the way over here I'll wrap whole of my component inside of this fragment. Let's see. Okay, that's fine. Let's bring back the loading over here, and now let's try to go and log in again. I'll just say Piyush1 at example.com, 1 2 3 4 5 6, click on login. Okay, we are successfully logged in. Now if I click on over here and click on log out, it's showing us this bar loader over here, and we are successfully logged out and routed to our homepage. Amazing. Now let's go on and work on building our dashboard. So first what I'll do, I'll go to Supabase and our table editor. So we create both of these tables over here, right? And I made you enable row level security for them. So let's see what this is all about. So if you go back to this authentication and go to policies, you can see we have both of these tables over here, and we haven't not added any policies over here. So basically row level security means that we are adding a level of authorization on who can access our data, view our data, update or delete our data, right? So if I click on create policy, you can see we have a bunch of different options over here like select, insert, update, delete. Let's click on select, and it's gonna give us the this SQL code over here, that is anyone can access our data, that is it is available to public, right? But we want our data to be accessed only by the authenticated user, right? So I've put authenticated over here, and let's change this policy name to enable read access for auth users. And yeah, that should do it. Let's click on save. Let's create another policy on who can insert the data, right? So enable insert for authenticated users only. So if you click on it, this is basically a template that they've provided, right? So it already added this authenticated badge over here, and click on save policy. Great. Let's create another policy over here for deletion. We can also delete our URLs, right? So let's click on delete, and again, only authenticated users can delete their data. So yeah, let's save this policy now. Great. Let's add the row level security for our clicks table. So if I click on create policy, and we want to enable read access for only auth users, so only authenticated users, and I'll click on over here on authenticated. Okay, let's save the policy. And when it comes to inserting a particular click, so see, whenever we click on a short link, right, it's gonna gather all the analytics like related to device or location, something like that. But at that point, it's not necessary a user can be signed in or not, right? Because that is for public. Anyone can view my link, right? So we have to make sure to click on insert for like anyone can insert, right? So if I click on over here and remove this authenticated, so enable insert for anyone. Save policy. Okay, awesome. Okay, so now that we have added these rules over here, and also by the way, since we haven't added the update URL functionality. That's why we haven't added the update rule over here. But if you want to add that functionality inside of your app, you can definitely add that row level security over here as well. Right, so let's go back to our table. And right now I'll just try to add some dummy data so that we can render it on our app. Right, so if I click on this URLs and click on insert row, let's see, let's add some original URLs. So I would add the URL to my website. Let's copy this, paste it over here. A short URL, let's add short URL. So I'll go for trimmer.in/ like whatever, right? We can enter some random URL over here, 6-digit ID like this. Let's keep the custom URL null for now. User ID, let's select a user. How do we know which one is this? Let's check our users table. So if I go on over here, for this user right here, what's the ID? It's 434. Okay, let's just select this 434 user, this one. Okay, title, I'll keep it interview course. QR, we don't have a QR yet. Let's just save this for now, right? We can add that later on. Okay, cool. We have added this first entry right now. Let's try to add some clicks for that particular URL, right? If I click on insert row, URL ID, we only have one URL, so I'll just select this URL ID. City, let's say Delhi for first one. Device, desktop, maybe. Country, India. Okay, save. Let's add another. Insert row, select record. City, I'll say Kanpur. Device, mobile, country, India. Okay, cool. We have some dummy data over here. And while we are at it, let's go to our storage. And you saw we had an QR code field, right? So let's just create a new bucket for our QR as well. So name of the bucket, let's call it QRs. It's going to be a public bucket and save it. Let's just upload a dummy file over here. Okay, it's uploading. Cool then. If you go to policies, you can also set policies for this one. Let's click on new policy for full customization. For viewing, I think anyone can view our QR code. So anyone can read QR and review and save this. New policy, I'm gonna, for inserting, I'll only keep the authenticated user. Okay, auth users can insert. Let's click on review and save policy. Okay, great. Now that we have added all of these policies, let's go back to our code and build the APIs for both of these. So I'll go to my DB folder and create a new file for API urls.js. It's going to be very similar to the ones that we have created earlier. So let me just go on over here and copy one of these and paste it over here. And here I'll say get URLs. Basically, right now I'm going to fetch all of the URLs related to that particular user. So I'll take a user ID and let me import Supabase as well. Yeah. So Supabase dot, and right now we're not going to use auth, right? So Supabase dot from. So if we want to take some data from a table, we use from function over here. So from which table? URLs, right? What are we supposed to do? We're supposed to select. That's what we did, right? Select, insert, update, delete. We saw over there. So we want to select. What do we want to select? Everything. So I'll put star over here. If you wanted to select some specific thing, we would mention that over here, like ID or whatever. You'll see that when we do that later on in this video, right? So, and then it should be equal to. So for that equal, we will use this EQ. So equal to what? User underscore ID, and we're getting this user ID right over here from this function param. And then after that, if there's any error, we're gonna throw new error.message. Let me remove this session over here, and we're gonna simply return our data. Cool. And actually, let's just add a generic error over here as well. I'll just say in the console error, I'll just say error.message, and over here I'll say enable to load URLs. That's all. All right, now we want to load clicks related to that particular user, because that is what we are going to show inside of our dashboard page, right? So I'll create a new file for our clicks, separate API file. So API clicks.js, and let's just paste this over here that we just built, and let's import Supabase. Instead of get URLs, I'll say get clicks for URLs, and this will basically take an array of URL. So URL IDs, right? So this will be an array of IDs for the URL, and we want to fetch the clicks for all of these. So this will be Supabase dot from. We want to take the data from the clicks table. We want everything, and after that we will say dot in. So in will be for inside of this array, that is this URL IDs, right? So which field does it belongs? So URL underscore ID comma URL IDs. That's all. And if there's any error, I'll say unable to load clicks, and we're gonna return the data. All right, sounds good. Let's close this and go back to our dashboard page, and let's start building our UI for the dashboard. So first of all, in the beginning of this dashboard, at the top of this dashboard, I want a bar loader whenever our data is loading right now. Bar loader, and width will be 100%, and color I'll keep as whatever we were keeping earlier, right? You can customize it according to you, whatever you feel is good over here. And over here obviously we will have a condition. If it is true, only then we will display this bar loader. Obviously I'll change this later on. Now below this I'll have a div, and inside this we are going to be rendering both of the stats, like total links created and total clicks that we have, and below that we will have all of the links that user have created. So we will have two cards over here, right? So let's go back to our Supabase and let's select the card component, and let's take this code. If we paste it over here, we're not going to be using card footer. We don't need card description. We just need the card title, header, and the content. Okay, great. Make sure to import all of these things just like this. Okay, so over here I'll say links created, and how many links are created I will render over here. I'll just say 0 for now. Let me duplicate it over here, and total clicks, and this will be 0 by default as well. Let's see if this is rendering anything. Let's go to our links page. Oh, this is not working. I guess we haven't added the navigation to this. Let's go to header, and over here in the links, yes, we haven't added the link tag. Let's wrap this whole thing in the link tag, and I'll say to, it's supposed to go to /dashboard, right? So /dash-board. Let's see if it's working now. Oh, let's add class name over here of flex. Okay, if I click on it, yes, we are routed to dashboard, and you can see we have that bar loader and both of these cards as well. Great. Let's go back to the dashboard component, and over here let's make this a grid. So oops, I forgot to add it inside of this div. Let's see how does it look. Okay, yeah, so for this div I'll have a class name of grid. So display grid, and I want 2 columns, right? So grid calls to 2 and some gap of 4. So gap of 4 over here. Let's see. Okay, this looks good. And actually between both of these as well I want some gap, so I'll have some class name of flex direction to be column, and gap of 8. Right, now below this div I want another div, right? So first of all, this will have an h1 for my links, and I'll have a modal over here. So I'll have basically have a button which will be creating our link, right? So I'll say button. For now I'll just add a button over here, create link. Let's import this button, and let's see. Yeah, okay, let's give this some styles. Class name flex, and justify between so that they are on both of the far ends. Okay, cool. For the h1 I'll have some class name of text 4XL and font to be extra bold. Looks good. Now then we will have a div where we will be rendering the links. So inside this div, first of all I'll give the class name as relative, and inside of it I'll have an input tag, input, because we want to show a filter over here as well, right? Like a search option where we can search all of the links that are rendered below it, and it will filter according to that. This will be of type type text. I'll have a placeholder of filter links, and it will have a value and an on change function, right? So let's just create a state for it right away. So over here I'll have a use state which will be called search query, and it will be empty by default. Let's take this, provide it to value, and over here I'll take the event and say set search query event.target.value. Alright, cool. Now below this, I'll render a filter icon from Lucid React. You can see the preview over here. So this is what we will render. And that's why we gave class name relative over here, because we want it to be absolute. So class name absolute, top to be 2, right to be 2 as well, and padding to be 1. Let's see how this looks like. Okay, pretty good. Now below this, if there's any error while fetching our API, I'm gonna render the error component, the one that we've created earlier. So let me just import it, and message will be error.message. Error, we haven't called this API, so let's just do one thing. Let me just comment this out for now. Let me just call both of our APIs over here first. So we're gonna be using our useFetch hook, custom hook that we made. First of all, I want the get URLs, and this will take the user ID, right? So user.id, and let's take the user from our context. So URL state, the context that we made earlier, const, and I'll take out the user from it. Okay, so this useFetch will give us something. Also, let's just make this optional chaining so it doesn't give us error, and this will give us loading, error, and data. Let's just call this data URLs, and we will also get the function that we're going to be calling. Let's just call it fn URLs. Okay, cool. Now same for the other API that we've made. So use fetch, and it was called get clicks for URLs, right? And what this will take is the array of all of the URLs. So we will get the array of URLs inside of this data, right? So over here, simply we will fetch all of the IDs for the URLs. So here I'll say URLs dot map, and for each URL I'll take out the URL.id and provide it to this one. Okay, cool. Const, and this will give us loading as well. I'll rename this to loading clicks. It will give us data as well, which I'll call clicks, and the function will be called fn clicks. Okay, cool. In our use effect, as soon as our component is loaded, what I want to do, I want to make the API call to load all of our URLs. Right, let me just import use effect. Is it imported? Yes. Oh, we have added this code inside of over there. Okay, so inside the use effect, I want fn URLs, right? This function over here to be called, and then I'll add another use effect which will only be called if we have URL like URLs, right? So URL dot length. So if there's something inside of URL dot length, then called fn clicks. Let's just remove this fn URLs from over here, and in the dependency array I'll put this URLs dot length. Great. Also, you might remember we had this search query over here, right, for searching our URLs. So what I'll do over here, I'll add this. So in the filter URLs, we will get URLs dot filter, and we will filter all of our URLs, right, with respect to the title. We will first convert the title to lowercase, and we will check if it includes our search query, which will also be in lowercase. If it does, then we will return that URL over here, and then we can render this filter URLs array over here. If there's nothing inside of the search query, it will just return us the whole URLs array right over here. Cool then. So let's go on over here. First of all, we were writing this error message, so I'll say error. If there's anything inside of the error, we will render our error message. Let's say error optional chaining, right? Also over here in the loading, we have both of these loading clicks and loading, right? So I'll say loading clicks, and I'll also add loading over here. So loading and loading clicks, or actually I think I should say loading or loading clicks. If any one of these is true, we will show that loading over here. Let's go back and see if it's actually working. I'll just open the network tab. Let's refresh this. Okay, we get 404 over here with the clicks. What is it? Clicks dot URL ID. Did we say UTL over here? Let's see. Oh yeah, it should be URL. Awesome. So now we're getting both of the data. We're getting the array of our URL right now. There's only one entry over here, and also we're getting both of our clicks. Great. Let's go on and render these. So actually, let's just make this data as dynamic now. So for the number of URLs created, I have put 0 over here. Let's just say URLs dot length, or links created, right? And over here, number of clicks will be clicks dot length. Okay, let's see. Okay, links created 1, total clicks or total click, it should be clicks. Okay, to be 2. Okay, so below this error, I will render my filter URLs. So first of all, I'll check if there's something inside of filter URLs, then good, else take the empty array, right? So I'll say dot map, and I'll map through each and every URL. Let's take the URL over here and the ID, and inside this I will return, let's just return the URL dot title. Let's see what do we get. Okay, we get this. Fine. So actually right now over here I'm going to be creating a separate component called link card, where we will be creating the UI for that card. So over here in the components I'll create a new file called link card.jsx. Inside of this RAFCE, let's call it link card, and this will basically take the current URL, and also it will take fetch URLs function. After we have deleted all of the URLs, we want to fetch the URLs as again, right? So this fetch URL obviously comes from over here. Where is it? This fn URL. So let's just import that component. Let me just save it first. So over here I'll say link card, and since we are mapping through it, so let's just give it a key of I. It will take a URL, which I'll provide the URL, current URL, and fetch URLs, which will be this fn URLs function, right? Okay, let's go back and build this link card. So first of all, inside of this we will render a QR, right? So we had uploaded this QR over here, and actually I forgot to add that in the table, so let me just manually add it right now. So this QR, let's just take the URL, so get URL, and I'll go back to my table editor, URLs, and here we have this URL field as empty. I'll just add this dummy URL for now. Okay, later on we will have the logic for uploading this URL inside of it as well. Okay, so first of all we will have the image, so img src will be url.qr, again optional chaining, and there will be an alt tag for QR code. Let's just call it QR code. Let's see. Okay, we're not rendering this QR. Let's refresh the page. Oh yeah, we are. Great. Let's just add some styles to this. Let's give the styles to my div first, which will be display flex, flex to be column. When the size is more than the medium screen, it will be flex row, gap to be 5, some border, some padding, some background color of gray 900, and it will be rounded from the corners. Let's see. Okay, let's make this smaller. So I'll have a class name with the height of 32 and object contain, so that it takes, like, it maintains the shape, right, with object fit contain. I'll have a ring of blue color around it, and self to be start, so that it is aligned on the very left side when it's on the mobile screens. Okay, great. So if I show you in the mobile screens, if I make it small, right now you won't be able to see because we haven't added the content below it. So let's just add that first. So below it I'll have a link tag, which will actually lead us to the individual URL page, right? So I'll say to, and I'll have backtick over here slash link slash whatever is the ID of this link. So I'll say URL.id. Okay, inside of this link I'll have a span which will contain the title. So URL.title. Let's import this link over here from React Router DOM and see. Okay, we can see the title. We also need to render our short URL, right? So over here, what I'll say http trimmer.in on, and actually you can take this trimmer.in, this whole URL thing inside of your probably environment variables, and then you can import environment variable over here directly. That will be much better. And I'm gonna say URL. If there's a custom URL, then I'm supposed to show the custom URL, else we will show the short URL over here. Okay, see how this looks like? Okay, looks good. Then below this, I'll have another span tag. So let me just duplicate it, and I'll show the original URL over here. So let's just get rid of all of this stuff, this as well. And I'll say URL.original_URL, just like that. And then below it, I will show the current time, or not the current time, actually the time when the URL was created. So over here, I'll say created_at, but see, over here it will show some weird time format, right? So we need to format this. So I'll wrap this whole thing, and I'll say new date, and I'll actually put it over here. Yeah, new date, and I'm gonna say dot to local string. Okay, let's see. Yeah, that's much more readable. And you know what, for this link, let me just give the class name first because it looks weird. So I'll say flex column, and flex of 1 to this, so that it takes the most of the part in this whole container. So yeah, that's cool. Let's give styles for each and every one of these. So for title, I'll say text 3XL, font to be extra bold, hover. When we hover on this, we will see the underline and the cursor pointer. Similar styles to this one as well. Text 2XL, text blue 400 because we want to show this link as blue, right? Some font bold and same hover styles. Similar styles for our original URL as well. Flex, items to be center, gap to be 1, and when we hover on it, we will show the underline. Let's see. Yeah, this looks good. Let's add for our time as well. And actually, I want the time to take most of the gap, so I'll add flex 1 to this, and font to be extra light. Text is going to be small, and it's going to be aligned at the very end, and obviously display flex, right? So you can see it's aligned at the end, and it has taken all of the remaining space over here. Oh, I think I've rendered it twice, and actually I made a mistake. Inside of over here, when it comes to our short URL, we will only keep the ID, nothing else. So let's just remove everything else. If we refresh this now, amazing, we can see that beautiful loading indicator, and now we have all of our data over here. Great. So if we had more than one link, we would see multiple links here. Nice. Now at this right side of our card, we want to show buttons like download the QR code. We want to show a button for deleting this particular URL, and also copying this short URL, right? And you can see when we clicked on it, we are routed to this specific like single link page. Okay, let's just add those icons first. So right below this link, I'll have a div with the class name of flex and gap of 2 between them, and I'll have 3 buttons. So I'll have button. This button will render the copy icon, so copy, and make sure to import it from Lucid React, and I'll actually duplicate it multiple times. And this one will have a download icon, and this one will have a delete icon. Let's see. Okay, nice. Now this button, we don't want this background to be white, right? So I'll give it variant to be ghost. Let's see. Yeah, that's better. Let's just copy this variant and paste on over here, and let's go on and write the logic for each and every one of these. So let's start with copy. So on click, it will be very simple. We will use a navigator function which comes inbuilt inside of our browser. So I'll say navigator dot clipboard dot write text, and we can write the text whatever you want to write to the clipboard. So I'll say https trimmer.n and our short URL, right? If you want, you can make them copy long URL or custom URL, whatever. I prefer short URL over here that they can copy, right? Now let's worry about the download logic of our QR code. So let's create a function over here called download image, and obviously this function doesn't exist yet, so let's create it over here. Const download image, and this will, first of all, we need to specify 2 things: what's going to be the image URL and the file name, right? So our image URL is url.qr, and our file name is going to be url.title. Okay, then we come down, we have to create an anchor tag over here. So I'm going to create anchor tag by using document.createElement a, and for href it's going to be this image URL, and I'm going to say anchor.download and assign this file name to it. And simply after we have created this anchor tag, I'm going to add it to my body. So I'll say document.body.append child anchor, and then I'm going to simulate a click over here. So I'll say anchor.click, right? This will enable us to download the URL, and after that we have done this procedure, I'm gonna remove this anchor from our document.body, right? So we're basically simulating this over here. Also, one thing that I noticed that we have added this delete icon over here, right? There should be trash icon. So trash, yep, this looks better. Now let's go on and add the logic for deleting a particular URL. So let me just add a dummy URL over here real quick. If I can duplicate it, let's just insert a row. Let's just enter random stuff over here. I'll just add this, something over here, nothing in the custom URL. Let's select user title. I'm just gonna keep it anything. QR, let's just not add the QR and save it. And if I refresh this now, okay, we have a dummy entry over here, and obviously since we haven't added the QR, it's not showing up. No worries, let's just add the logic for deleting the URL. So right above this, let me just shrink it, and over here I'll have useFetch hook, and I'll use a function, and actually I realized I haven't created it, so I'll go to API URLs, and let's just duplicate this, and I'll say delete URLs, and I'll give this the ID of the URL that I'm supposed to delete, and I'll say Supabase dot from URLs, and I'll say delete, and nothing inside of it. It should be equal to the ID, which is the provided ID. Okay, if there's any error, we will display the error, else we will return the data. Okay, let's take this delete URLs, or it should be URL actually. Let's take this and paste it right over here, and it will take the URL ID. So I'll say comma URL dot ID. It will return as const loading, and the function loading I'll rename as loading delete. Function I'll say fn delete. So first of all, over here in the button, I'll say on click I'll trigger that fn delete, and when this is done I'll say dot, then after this has deleted it, I'll call the fetch URLs again that we are bringing in from over here, right? And over here I'll show the loading as well. So if the loading delete is true, I'll show the beat loader that we used earlier, else I'll show the trash, and this beat loader will be of size 5 and color white. Let's see if it's working. If I click on over here, it shows the loader and the URL is gone. Let's see our database. Yep, the URL is gone. Amazing. And you know, if there's any clicks associated with that URL, it will be deleted as well over here. There was no click for that one, but they will be deleted since we turned on that cascade, if you remember, in the beginning of the video. Amazing. So let's just add now proper, creating the URL functionality. So inside of our dashboard, we have this create link, right? So for this one, I'll add the logic for creating the URL. But first, let's go on and create the API for this create link. So I'll go to API URLs, and let's just duplicate it again. And over here, I'll create a function called create URL. And this will take a bunch of things over here. So it will be title, long URL, custom URL, user ID. Okay, so it will be taking this as an object, and it will also take the QR code. Okay, now before all of this stuff, I need to upload the QR code, right? So we will use the same logic that we used earlier in the case of profile picture. So I'll go to the auth, and over here, let me just copy this whole thing up, and I'll paste it here. So for this, let's just say instead of DP, I'll say QR, and dash, I'll keep whatever's the short URL that we will generate over here. So also, when we will create the URL, obviously we will not be providing what the short URL is going to be, right? We can only provide the custom URL, a unique custom URL, but short URL will be generated over here. So let's just generate a short URL. So I'll say const short URL, and I want it to generate for 6-digit, right? 6-digit URL. So I'll say math dot random. I'll say dot toString. The toString specifies the radix for converting numeric values to string, right? And we want to generate a base 36, and I'm gonna say dot substring. I'll show you what I'm doing over here, and I'll say 2,6. So let me show you. If I just copy this whole thing up, go back to our browser, click on inspect console, and if I just paste this thing over here without the substring, you can see we get something like this, but we want to start from over here, right? So that's why I've taken from 2 to 6. So we're getting 4-digit ID over here. If you want 6-digit, you can keep it from 2 to 8, then you will get 6-digit. So just to keep our URL pretty short, I'll just keep 2 to 6 right now, right? If tomorrow our app scales, we can change it. So I'll take the short URL and paste it over here, and now we want to upload it over here, right? So instead of profile pic, I'll say QRs and this QR code that we're going to be uploading over here. Okay, so far so good. We're checking the error over here as well. And then after that, if you remember, we did this. So we had this whole URL, right, for the profile pic. So let me just add that for our QR over here as well. So I'll say const QR equals the Supabase URL. Let's import this Supabase URL /storage v1 object, and we will have QRs over here, and then the file name. Okay, this is what we will upload to our database. Okay, now let's make the real API call over here for creating the URL. So first of all, I'll say await Supabase from. Now we're gonna do insert operation, right? So we're gonna use insert. So insert, what are we supposed to insert? I'll have an array, and inside this I'm supposed to insert this object right here, right? This object will contain all of these things: title, long URL, custom URL, user ID. So let me just paste it over here. And this actually won't be long URL, it will be original underscore URL. And instead of this custom URL, I'll say custom underscore URL. And this could be null as well, right? This is optional, so I'll say or null. If this doesn't exist, I'll just add null over here. User ID, that's fine. Add the short URL that we created over here, right here. Then we will add the QR. Okay, this seems right. Then I'll say dot select, select, so that we return it as well over here, right? Not just because we want the data to see if it's actually been created, so that's why I've added dot select. For error, I'll say error creating short URL. Okay, and then return the data. Yeah, I think this should do it. This should be it for creating the API for create URL. Let's go to our UI and add a pop-up for this create UI, right? Create URL. So inside of the components, I'll create a new file, create-link.jsx. I'll say RAFCE create link. Now we're gonna add a couple of things over here. So let me just open my terminal. First of all, we want to add a pop-up component from Shadcn UI. So that will be a dialog. So you can see if I click on over here, this gives us this dialog, right? So I'll just copy this up, open a new terminal, and paste this right over here. Also, to generate our QR code while creating the link, I'm going to be using a library called React QR Code Logo. So this library right here, and this is very easy to use. And actually you can, take it one step forward. You can add your logos and stuff as well over here. I'm going to keep it simple for the sake of this tutorial. I'm just supposed to import this QR code from this library, and then we can just provide it with the link, and it's going to generate a beautiful QR code for us. Amazing. So let me just copy this up and paste it over here to install it. Okay, so let me just close this terminal now. And over here, first of all, I'll take a couple of things at the top. So we want the information of the user, right? So I'll say URL state const user, so that we can assign the URL to the correct user, right? Then we will also have a use navigate hook, so that we can navigate the user after the URL has been created. We will have the search params, because if you remember, we were doing this, right? When we, let's say if we are on homepage, whatever URL that we've entered over here and click on shorten, it's going to go over here with this search param, right? So what we want, as soon as the user lands over here, we want to show him the pop-up with this long URL pre-filled, right? So that's what I'll do over here. I'll fetch it from here, and I'll create a variable for our long link as well. Okay, now let's just build our UI first. So let's see, we have installed this dialog, right? So let's copy this whole thing up and paste it over here. Let's copy all of this imports and paste it right here. Okay, let me just take this create link and render it there for now. Let's see what do we see right now. So create link, import it. Okay, let's go back to our UI and refresh it. Okay, we can see this open. If I click on it, yep, we can see the dialog, right? Let's just customize it according to us. So if I go back to the create link component, let me just close this. Inside of our dialog trigger is where we will be creating our button called create new link. Let me just import this button over here, and variant will be destructive. So we can see, yep, this looks much better. If we click on it, yep. Now we'll be creating our form of, creating the URL inside of this dialog content. So I'll add a class name of, if the, screen size is more than smaller breakpoint, then we will add max width to be medium, which is 448 pixels. So let me show you. So if I click on it over here, and if I make it small, see in the smaller screens, it's going to take the full space. I want the title to be create new. Let's remove the description. We're not going to be needing that. And below this header, let's create our form over here. So I'll have the input tag from Shadcn UI. This will be of ID title. Placeholder will be short links title. Let's see. Yeah. And again, we'll be adding the validations over here as well, right? So I'll add the error component below each and every one of these. So for now, I'll just, I think it was message, right? Yeah, for message, I'll say some error. Okay, let's just duplicate it multiple times. Okay, let's just call it enter your long URL, and this one I'll call as custom link, which is going to be optional, right? So I've kept optional over here. And actually, before this displaying this custom link, I want to show that trimmer.in, right? So I'll just render a small card over here, and let's just wrap this thing inside of a div. And over here, I'll render a card called trimmer.in with padding 2, right? So let's see how this looks like. Okay, we need to give this some styles, obviously. So I'll say class name to be display flex, items to be center, and some gap to be 2. Let's see. Yep, that looks better. Let's just add a slash in between. Yeah, that's more like it. Now we actually have a footer in our dialog as well. Let's see if it's not added in the documentation. I think it was somewhere over here. Yeah, see this dialog footer. I'll just copy it up, and right below this I'll paste this dialog footer and import it as well. So over here we will be creating a button for submitting. So I'll say variant is going to be destructive, and over here I'll say create or create link, whatever you want to call it. Let's see. Okay, this looks better. Let's just add the styles for all of these. So for the title, I'll say font to be bold, text to be 2XL. Yep, just like that. And for my dialog footer, I'll say class name. If it's more than smaller screens, I'll say justify start. It should go to the very end, right? So let me show you. See, when the screen size is small, it's gonna cover the whole thing. Else, it's gonna say justify start. So let's just create the state for our form. So it's going to be very simple, very similar to what we have done earlier in case of the login form. So we've created the errors state first of all, right? Let me just import useState, and we've created this form value or form data, whatever you want to call it. We will have 3 things. One is the title, other is the long URL, and you can see we have taken the long URL from over here. If the long URL is there, it's going to be auto-filled, else it's going to be empty. And we have the custom URL, which is empty as well. Then I'm going to be creating the yup schema for all of these. So let's just import star as yup from yup. Okay, let's just remove this dialog description from over here, and below this we will create the schema. So schema will be very simple, yup dot object, and we'll create the shape of our form. So first of all, the title will be there. It will be a string, and it's obviously required. So title is required. I'll give this error if user doesn't fill it. For long URL, I'll say yup string, and it should be a URL. So I'll give the error that it must be a valid URL, and it's required as well. For customer URL, I'll just say yup dot string, and we won't give any error if it's not provided since it's optional. And then we will have a very simple handle change function, which we will provide to on change for all of these fields. So it will take an event, and it will say e.target.id. So in this case, I've taken ID just to show you that we can do this with ID as well, just like we can do this with name. So we took name earlier, right, when we were building login component or login form, right? So let's just assign these to them pretty quick. For my title, I'll say value to form values.title, on change handle change. For long URL as well, I'll say value to be form values.long URL, on change to be handle change, and same thing to our this custom link as well, custom URL and the handle change. Great. Now if I go back over here, you're gonna see if I click on create new link, it's already pre-filled. But if I refresh this doesn't do anything, right? We want this pop-up to come as soon as we load this page, because this is over here in the URL, right? So what I'll do, in my dialog we have a function, and actually I don't think we need this div over here, so let me just remove this div. Yeah, so dialog, I'll say default open, and inside this I'll give my long link. So if there's something inside the long link, it will be open by default. But on open change, as soon as it changes, it's as soon as it opens, we will remove it from our URL, right? We don't want to just live there in our URL. So I'll say result, and I'll say if there's any value over here, and I'll add curly braces actually. If there's no value over here, that if it's not open, then I'll say set search params to be empty object. Let's see. Yep, it has opened. Let me just copy it first, paste it, and just run it again. It's opened. When I close it, you're gonna see it will be removed from over here. Great. Now we're gonna be adding the logic for creating our URL. So we've created that API, right? So here I'll take useFetch. And also one thing before doing this, let me just comment it out for now. We're gonna be rendering our QR code as well, right? As user goes on to create the link, I'm gonna display that QR code on the top. So right below this header, I'll say if the form values has the long URL inside of it, I'll render my QR code. So we installed this React QR code library, right? So I'll render this, and this will simply take a value which will be this only, form values.long URL. Let's paste it over here. It will take a prop called size. I'll say 250, and actually I'll create a ref on the top. So const ref equals use ref to reference it, so that when we create our link, we can provide it over there. So let's take this ref, and so ref equals ref over here. Let's see, our QR should be visible right now. If I click on create new link, okay, we haven't added any link, so let's add it. Oops, not over here, over here, over here. Oh, I think there's some issue with form. Let's see. Oh, okay, so we haven't provided the unique IDs to all of them. So this should be long URL, and this should be custom URL. Okay, let's try that again. If I add my long URL over here, you can see instantly it generated a QR code for us, and we'll be storing this QR code inside of our database as well. Awesome. So now let's go on and add the logic for our API. So useFetch, and I'll call my create URL function from the DB. And first of all, over here I'll have a object. I'll take all of the form values and the user underscore ID. So we took the user on the top, right? So user.id, and this will return us all of those loading, error, data, and the function I'll rename into fn create URL. Now below this, let's add the logic of creating new URL. So I'll create a function const create new URL, just like this. Let's add this function to this button over here. I'll say on click to be this create new link, and we have this loading over here, right? Whenever it's loading, I'm gonna similarly display that beat loader that we displayed earlier. So if it's loading, then I'm gonna show this beat loader with size 10, color white, whatever you want. You can customize it according to you. And over here I'll make it disabled as well. So disabled when the loading is there, so that user cannot click again and again on this button. Great. Let's go on and write the logic over here. First of all, I'll set the errors to empty, and then I'll have a try catch block. Inside of the try, first of all, I'll validate my schema according to this schema, right? This yup schema. So I'll check if there's any error or not. So I'll say await schema.validate, just like this. Then now this part is very important. So we have the reference to this QR code over here, right? And let me show you. If we click on create a new link and add a new link over here, if I inspect it, you're going to see inside of this QR code, we have this canvas element, right? And which contains this image. So this is exactly what we want. So what we're going to do over here is I'll say const canvas equals our ref.canvas, ref.current.canvas ref, right? We have the reference to that canvas now, dot current. And also this function will be an asynchronous function. Only then we'll be able to use the promises. Okay, now after that, we will fetch that blob of the image from inside of it, right? So I'll say const blob equals await new promise, and we will take canvas dot to blob, and we will provide this promise over here. Okay, and then this will successfully give us our QR inside this blob over here. And then we can simply say await fn create URL. And you can already see we have provided the form values, but we haven't provided the QR. So if you remember, in the useFetch, we had that another function. So let's see, inside of hooks useFetch, we can also provide it from over here, right? So then we can provide our blob just like this. Cool. And the error handling will be same as the way we did in login for handling errors for validations. Okay, this looks good. Let's just take this error and let's assign the values over here. First of all, for the title, then I'll have for the long URL. So let's just take it for the long URL. We just put some gaps so that it looks better. And over here, let me just copy this and paste it. And it won't be actually for the custom URL. Let's just keep it as overall error for our form. So let's just say error. I'm going to use this error right here, this one, for our API call. So I'll say if the error is there, then display error dot message. Okay, looks good. And now after our URL has been created, I'll have a use effect over here. Use effect. If the error or data has changed, let me just import it. Then what will we do? We will check if the error is null and the data is there. Then we will route our link to data of 0.id. You know, whatever the URL that has been created right here. Great. So let's see. Let's try to create our URL. Let's just refresh it. Cannot access lexical declaration. Okay. Let me just copy it and move it above this use effect. Now it shouldn't give this error. Let's refresh this now. Okay. Let's try to create a new link. So let me just get the link for my YouTube channel, youtube.com/roadsidecoder. Create new link. Let's say YT. Enter your long URL. Okay, and click on. Should we enter a custom link? Okay, let's just enter RC, right, and click on create. Okay, this has been created and it has routed us to local storage. Let's go back and see the table. Okay, it has generated a short URL as well. Custom URL. We also have a custom URL. Awesome. We have a QR code as well. Amazing. Let's go back and see if I go to my links. So we have a custom QR code made for us. Amazing. We have successfully built our dashboard. Now what I want to do, so we can either build this, link page first, but what I want to build first is this thing, the actual URL. So we have this custom URL and this short URL of these things, right? What I want, I can just copy this link, open a new tab, and if I paste it over here, see, when I press enter over here, actually this is not yet deployed. So I'll say localhost and whatever that I kept after it, the ID, and press enter. It should, show me loading and should redirect to that original URL now, right? So let's go on and build this page over here. So first of all, I'll go on and build the API for this. So over here in the DB, in the API URLs, I'll create an API which, when we, let's say if we hit this endpoint, it will take this ID of a short URL or let's say custom URL, right? And it will fetch the long URL from the database and we can redirect it. Redirect to it. So let's just copy one of these functions, paste it over here, and I'll say get long URL. And this will be very simple. So from URLs, let's delete it. This will give us an ID of that short URL, right? Or a custom URL. I'll say dot select. We want the ID, not everything. We just want the ID and the original underscore URL. And see, we want to compare to both of the short URL and the custom URL, right? So I'll say or, and I'll add a backtick over here and say this. So if the short URL is equal to the ID, that's good. Else compare the custom URL equal to this ID, right? Either of these, whatever matches, we will get that, and we will return a single row, right? So dot single. Okay, then we will throw the error, that error fetching short link, and in the end return the data. All right, now we're supposed to create one more API over here. After we have found our original URL, we will also store the stats for that particular user, right? Like device, location, etc. So let me show you. This is going to be very simple. And to get this data, I will install a library called UA parser. So I'll come down to my terminal, create a new terminal, and I'll say npm install ua-parser.js. And over here, first of all, I'll create a new parser. So UA parser, let's just import it just like this. And below it, I'll create that API call. So it's going to be very simple. So I'll call it store clicks. And inside this store clicks, I'll have a try catch block. In the try, first of all, I'll say if the parser dot get results, so this is a function that you have to call to get the information about the user's device. So I'll store this response dot type. If we don't get anything, I'll just store the desktop, right? Then we have another API which will help us determine the location of the user. So if we hit this API, IP API/JSON, we will get the response over here about the user, their IP address, whatever, what we need. But we just need the country and the city, right? So that's what we're gonna use. So simply over here, I'll fetch this API and we'll take the response and we'll take out the country name and the city. We will rename the country name to country, and then we will insert it inside of our clicks table. So I'll say await supabase.from clicks and insert this particular entry inside of it. And then after this, we will simply route our user to the original URL. So window.location.href, we will provide this original URL over here and we'll route our user over here. And simply in the error, we can say console.error, error recording click. Okay, I think this should be it. Let's go on and build this page. So I'll go to our pages and this redirect link page. Yeah, so there's actually not going to be much UI involved over here. First of all, we will take the ID from our params, right? This ID, that's what we need. So I'll say ID and we will take it out using our use params hook that comes from React.DOM. And then we will get the long URL for it, right? So I'll have our useFetch and our get long URL and provide it with this ID that we've got over here and take out loading data and the function that we will trigger. And also, since we want to store the clicks, then we will take out this store clicks from our DB and provide it to our useFetch, and I'll provide it with the ID of our short URL and the original URL to this, right? So that it can store the clicks inside of our database. Let me just close this. Okay. And also one more thing that I would like to mention, that we are manually making an API call over here, right, to store all of our analytics. There are better ways to do this as well, like more optimized clicks by using something like a Kafka queue, right? So I have avoided using that in this video because that would make this video too long. If you want, I can make a separate video on that topic over here as well. This is good enough for smaller projects. Now when this component is loaded for the very first time, so I'll say use effect, I'll call this function, right, to get the long URL. So function, and then I'll have another use effect after it. I'll put loading for this one over here, and simply I'll add a condition here. If the loading has stopped and we've gotten the data from this API, then we will call this fn stats, and we will basically store the stats inside of our database. Great. And simply in the end, instead of this return, like I'll say return null, but before that I'll have an if condition. If the loading is true and the loading stats is true, I'll show this bar loader and redirect the user to the original URL, right? So let's just take one of the IDs from our database. So this one, let's say, right, and this should route us. So I'll put it over here, enter. You can see we have the loading indicator, and this routed me to my course page. Amazing. So now if I go back to my database, click on clicks over here, you can see we have created a link. Yep, this one. So it shows me that I'm from Gurugram, desktop, India, all of the stats related to the user. Great. So this was actually the main feature of our app, to redirecting the user to where they want to go. So now we will be creating our link page. So let's say if I click on over here, this link page right here, we want to display the related information to their link. We want to display the analytics over here on the side, so user can see how many devices the link was visited, how many places the link was visited, etc. So let's create the API for this. So I'll go back to my not API clicks. Actually, I think this store clicks should have been in the API clicks file, right here, and I'll import this over here as well. Let's just fix the import for this in our, where was it, redirect link. So not from over here, it should be coming from over here, from the API clicks. So for a single link page, we want two things. We want the information for that particular URL, and we want the clicks for that particular URL, right? So I'll go over here to API URLs and I'll create a new API call. So I'll just copy and paste it over here. Let's call it get URL, and this will take an ID of that URL and the user ID. so that we can compare if it belongs to that user or not. So simply over here from URLs, I'll say select star dot equals to the ID of that URL and the ID of that user, and then I want this single URL. Okay, if we get any error, I'll simply say short URL not found. And similarly, I'll create a function for our clicks as well, for getting the clicks for that particular URL. So inside of API clicks, I'll just paste this right away, and from clicks, and actually this should be get clicks for URL, not URLs, and this will simply take a URL ID over here. I'll say from clicks select everything equals to, let's remove this, URL ID. So URL ID over here. If there's an error, I'll say unable to load stats. Okay, we're done with both of these APIs. Let's go on and build the UI for this. So inside of our link page that we've created, let's just open this link page. Yeah, it's already opened. We will have a couple of things. First of all, we will take this ID from our URL, right? So I'll say ID equals useParam, and also we will take the user state since we're going to be needing it while doing the API call. All right, let me just quickly bring both of those APIs over here. So useFetch, and let me explain this. So get URL that we've created and get clicks for URL, the API that we've created. So first of all, for get URL, we would need the ID of that URL and the ID of the currently logged in user, right? So we've taken out loading data just like previously, right? Function error. Same for get clicks for URL, we've taken out loading data and function with respect to that ID over here. And also we will have the logic for deleting our URL in this page as well. So let me just bring that over here as well. Delete URL. We will be needing using this in just a moment. So okay, let's just build this page. So first of all, I'll have a fragment. Inside of this fragment on the top, I'll have a loading indicator. So if this is loading or this is loading, I'll show a bar loader just like earlier, right? And below this, I'll have a div. Now this div will be divided into two parts. On the left side, we will show the details related to the link, the QR code and everything. And on the right side, we will show the stats, right? So inside this div, I'll have another div to show on the left side and then another div for the right side, right? So this one, I'll have a span inside of it. So span for our URL.title. So actually I haven't done the use effect over here, so let's just do that. So in the use effect, I'll fetch the function and the fn stats as well, both of these APIs. And if there's any error, I'll navigate them back to the dashboard. So let's just take this navigate. So const navigate equals use navigate. Okay, we will navigate back them back to the dashboard. Let's see. Yeah, we can see the YT title for that particular URL title, right? Below this span, I'll have an A tag for rendering that particular link. So it could be a short link or a custom URL as well. So see, I've added this condition over here. If the URL is custom URL, then just use that custom URL, else we will use the short URL, right? And we can just render this link inside of over here. And actually this won't just render anything, right? Because we need to add that HTTPS trimmer as well. So I'll just say this, and again you can add this inside of your environment variables for better coding practice. Oops, not over here, it should be right here. Yep. For this A tag, I'll say href will be same as this and target will be blank so that it opens in a new page. Then below this, similarly, I'm just gonna duplicate it and I'll render my original URL below this. So I'll just remove this and I'll simply say URL.original URL. Let's copy this and provide this to the href as well. For the original URL, let's just give this a link icon as well from Lucid React. Let's see. Okay, we will style all of these in just a moment. And then right below this, I'll have the span tag just like previously. We will have the date over here. Okay, let's just style them first. So first of all, for this parent div, I'll say flex and flex column. So for mobile devices, we will not show left and right, right? We will show up and down. So I'll say flex column, but for desktop, if it's more than smaller screens, I'll say flex row. Gap will be added between them, justify between, Right, now for this container right here, I'll say class name flex column items to be aligned at the start, and gap will be 8. It will have some rounded borders, and if the screen size is more than small, that is if it's flex row, I'll have width to be 2 by 5. Similar, I'll add it over here as well. For analytics, I'll say 3 by 5, right? I'll provide it 3 space, like fractions of space. So just like this, right? Let me show you. Yeah, that's better. Let's add further styles over here. For our title, I'll say text to be 6XL, font to be extra bold. When we hover on it, we will show underline and cursor to be pointer. Yep, like that. For our A tag, I'll say text to be 3XL, larger than small breakpoint. It will have text to be 4XL, text blue to be 400, some font to be bold, hover to be underlined, similar as before, and similar for our original URL as well. Okay, let's see. This looks better. For the span of the date, I'll have this flex items to be end. Again, we will provide this extra light and text to be small, like this. Now right below it, I'm gonna have those 3 buttons that we had earlier right over here inside of our link card. So where is it? Link card. So all of these 3 buttons. So let me just copy this div right here and paste it. So we will have the copy, download, and this trash icon. So let me just import all of these real quick. The bar loader, the button, and this logic as well. So let me just take the download image logic from the link card. So let's copy this function, download image, and paste it at the beginning. Okay, what else? Fetch URLs after the function is deleted. I don't think we need to do that because we're not in the dashboard, right? So we don't need to fetch them again. Let's keep it like this. And do we need to make any change over here? I think this looks good. Yeah, it's good. And simply right below all of this, I'll have my QR code rendered just like we did earlier. So class name will be width full, align self to be center. In the small, like bigger screens, it will be align self to be flex start to be aligned at the start. We'll have some ring around it, some padding, and some object fit contain. Let's see. Okay, looks good. Now on the right side, we will be rendering our analytics or our stats, right? So we'll be needing a card component. So card. Okay, let's just copy this up inside of this div. And actually, instead of this div, I'll just have a card component itself. I'll just give the class name to this. Let's import this card. Let me just remove this. We will need the header, obviously. We won't need the card description. We would need the title. We would need the card content, but not the card footer. Let's see how this looks like. Okay, this is exactly how I wanted it to be fetched. Now, first of all, we need to check, like we're fetching these stats over here, right? Are these stats actually fetched? So I'll add a condition over here in the card content that if the stats and stats dot length is there, then render this card content. Else what I'll do, I'll just say colon, and if the loading of stats is false, then I'll show no statistics yet, else we will show loading statistics. So let me show you. If I refresh this, you're gonna see, yep, no statistics yet for this link. Let me just open another link in that case, this interview course one. Yep, this is showing us the card content. So this has some statistics. So the card title will be stats, and I'll give this some class name of text to be 4XL and font to be extra bold. Now inside of this, first of all, we will show how many clicks have been there, right? So we will show just this card over here, total clicks, right? So I'll use the same component, and inside the card content, I'll just paste it right away, and we can see, yep, total clicks. For this card content, I'll give a class name of display flex column, and gap to be 6. Below this card, now over here, we will render 2 things, the location data and the device info, right? So first of all, we will have the location data and we will have the device info. Let's see. Okay. Now for both of these, we will have a separate component. Like for location, we will have this location component, which obviously doesn't exist yet. For device info, we will have this device stats component, which again doesn't exist yet, and both of these will take our stats. Okay, so let's go on over here in the components and create the file for both of them. So new file, location dash stats dot and device stats dot jsx. So for location stats, RAFCE location stats. Now we're gonna be displaying graphs over here, right, for our location and device, and for that we're gonna be using a library called recharts. So if I go to Google and search recharts, go to recharts.org, you can see a composable charting library built on React components. If we go to examples, you can see we have a bunch of different types of graphs over here. We're gonna be using a line graph and we're gonna be using a pie chart. So this pie chart. So first of all, let's go to this simple line chart, and actually let's just install this library first. So I'll go to terminal and say npm install recharts, and let's just receive our stats over here meanwhile. Okay, this is installed. Let me just close this terminal, close this up. So let's see how we can do this. Let's just copy this component over here and I'll paste it. Let's just okay, this is a class component. We don't need a class component actually. Let's click on try the demo in code sandbox. Click on app.tsx. Yeah, I think this should be a, yeah, this is a functional component. I'm just gonna copy it up and I'll paste it over here. So first of all, let me just rename my component back to location stats and take the stats over here. Let's see what do we get. Let's render this location stats. Let's just call it location only and import it right here. Let's see what do we see inside of our app. Okay, this is importing styles.css. Let's just not import styles.css. We can't really see anything. Let me just refresh it. Yep, now we can. Looks good. So okay, we need to make some changes to this. First of all, you can see in their data they have UV and PV, multiple different stats over here, right? What about our data? Let's go and see the network tab. So this one will be for displaying the location data, right, for all the cities. So we are getting multiple cities, like for example, when it comes to Delhi, there can be multiple people from Delhi that may have clicked over here, right? So what we want, if there's 4 people, we want to just take our data and accumulate it into an array with key value of like city and how many times that city has been visited, right? So if I just refresh this, see for our clicks over here in the response, we get 3 clicks and 1 from Kanpur, from Delhi and from Gurugram. Let's just do one thing. Let me just visit this link one more time. Let's just copy it from over here and I'll say, so we need to use localhost right now. Press enter. Now we will have 2 entries from Gurugram, I guess, right? Let's just close this and refresh this again. So see in the clicks, now we have 4 total entries. Okay, awesome. Let's make some changes, first UI changes to this thing. First of all, we will not need this Cartesian grid on the background. We will wrap this in the div with some style of width 100% of height 300, and actually to make it responsive, we have something called responsive container that comes from rechart as well. So you can see this responsive container. Okay, let's wrap our whole line chart with this as well. Now I'll give it width of 700, height of 300, that's fine. Data, I'll define this data in a second. For x-axis, data key they've given name, right, because they're using their data right now, name. I'll remove this padding and stuff from here. We will have our y-axis, no change. For our tooltip, I'll say label style. So there's a label style prop. You can go through their documentation and they have all of these things over there. So let's just give this color of green because right now it's very light. We can't see the label. Yeah, now we can see page E, page D, all of these things. Legend, we're not going to make any change to that. For line, it's going to be type monochrome. Data key, they've given currently theirs. We will change it. Some stroke and active dot, I'll just remove this. Okay, let's see now. Okay, this is much better. This is much more cleaner, right? Let's just add our data now, right? Let me just remove their data, and inside of this bracket, I'll create the data for that, all the cities. So I'll say const city count equals, I'll take the stats dot reduce. We will reduce it down to that one single value. We will take the accumulator and the current value, or let's say just item, so accumulator, and then inside of it, so the initial value will be an empty object, right? So first of all, I'll say accumulator item dot city. So let's say if the first item is Delhi, right? So for Delhi it will be 1 for the initial value, right? But if it's already exists, so I'll say if accumulator dot city exists, for that city like account exists, then what we will say, I'm gonna say accumulator item dot city plus 1, else we will do this thing, and in the end I'll return my accumulator, and this should give us the city count. Let's just take this and let me show you. If I just console log this, what do we get inside of it? Let me just comment all of this stuff for now inside of the console. See, we get this object just like this. Now we have to convert this inside of an array, right, with the city and count. So I'll take this object, let me just remove this. I'll say const cities equals object dot entries and wrap this city count object, and I'll say dot map, we will take city and count, and we will put city and count inside this array for each and every object. So okay, now we just need to take these cities and provide it over here in the data. Now there can be a lot of cities, right? But we only want to display it for top 5 cities. So cities dot slice 0,5. Data key will be city. For the line, I'll say count. And I think this should do it. Let's see. Okay, we can see Delhi, Kanpur, Gurugram. Amazing. We can see all of our counts over here. Let's add for our device stats as well. We will add a pie chart. So let's go on over here and click on our pie chart. So let's just click on try the demo in code sandbox, and we will take their demo code and make changes accordingly. Okay, let's go to app.tsx. Let's copy all of this code over here to the very end, and I'll go to device stats and just paste it over here. Let's rename it device, and inside of our link, let's just render our device stats. Let's see what do we get currently. Okay, we get this pie chart. Awesome. Let's make some changes accordingly. First of all, we're not going to be needing 2 charts, so I'll just remove one of them, and now, yep, better. So again, we will wrap them in a responsive container just like we've done over here to make them responsive. So okay, let's wrap in a responsive container for this div as well. Let's import this responsive container. This will also be 700 width and height will be 400. That's fine. I don't want to see the label line, so it will be false. We will assign the data key when we use our data. Currently its value. CX, CY, I don't think I need this right now. Outer radius, I don't need this. Fill, I don't need this. Let's see, what do we have right now? We can't see anything. I'll actually do one thing. So if I go back to over here, just click on over here, pie chart with custom label. So you can see this is what I'll use. So they have this custom label over here. They are mapping through their data inside this cell, right? So but this is just too hectic, like this, like created this completely different function over here. We don't want to do that. So what I'll do, I'll just take this and render it inside of this pie chart. Actually, I'll also render it inside of this. So I'll just take this cell, and this data doesn't exist yet. So let me just create my data. So let me just quickly bring that code in. It will be very similar to what we've done last time in the location data. So we're calculating device count this time, right? So just like in place of cities, we're gonna put item dot device now, and same over here we will say device and device count. Okay, cool. Let's just use this result over here. So in the pie, I'll say result label line to be false, and actually I want to display a label over here for each and every one. So label, and here I'll have a device, and it provide me with percent as well, and this will actually be in curly brace since this is a component, and we will render label for each and every one of them, and the label will be simply this. So device, for let's say if it's a mobile, how much percent it's taking, right? So percent into 100, we've calculated the percentage, and we want to fix it. We don't want to show any decimal places over here. That's why I added 2 fixed 0. Okay, now what about this one? We want to render our result array. I will take the entry and the index. That's fine. Key will be cell of index. That's fine. So for filling all the colors, for I want different colors, like just like they have done over here. So let's just take this colors array that they've taken. So I'll just put it over here, and also we don't need this data now. So let's just use these colors for each and every entry. We will use them. And yeah, I think this should be it. We don't need this entry, so let's just put underscore. And if I go back, let's refresh this. Oh, we get some error. Stats is not defined. Oh, sorry, I have not taken stats in the props over here. Let's go back and see. Let's refresh this. Okay, we have the location data and no device data. What's wrong? Did I forgot to do return or something? Oh, sorry, this will be pie, not pie chart. Yeah, for rendering each and every pie of this pie chart. Okay, and also data value will be count. We haven't added this. And save this. Let's go back. Awesome, we can see 75% desktop, 25% mobile. Amazing. So this is exactly what we wanted to do. And yeah, with this we have built our complete URL shortener. Congratulations. Now to improve this, you can make like few changes over here. Like you can probably add an edit functionality to this each and every URL. You can abstract some logic, like for example over here we are using this download image logic in multiple places, right? You can abstract it and move it to a util function or a custom hook probably, right? I think util function will be better. If you want me to improve the analytics that I've implemented in this video by using something like RabbitMQ or Kafka Q, just let me know in the comments down below. And also we can take this project to one step further by adding some, like pricing section or adding rate limiting. So if you want, you can go on and try this and implement this yourself. If you want me to do this, if you want me to create a part 2 of this video, hit that like button. I want at least 1,000 likes on this video. Alright, finally let's go on and deploy our app to Hostinger. So first of all, what I'll do, I'll go to my terminal and I'll create a production ready build for our app. So for that, I'll do npm run build and press enter. And you can see it has started to build our app. Building for production, and let's wait for it. There we go, rendering chunks, and yeah, our app is successfully built inside of this dist folder over here. Okay, so let's go back to Hostinger. So I've got this trimmer.in domain just like I've showed you at the beginning of this video. So what I'll do, I'll go to this websites option over here and I'll click on add a website. See all options, and yeah, we will get this interface over here. So I'll create a website. How do you want to build this website? Let's just skip this. Which domain? Trimmer.in. Okay, next. So this is initializing our domain, and here we are. And see, as I showed you, after you have purchased the domain, this might take a little bit of time to connect to your Hostinger account. So meanwhile, what we will do is we will go to this file manager over here, and this is the place, oh sorry, not this, inside of public_html, this is the place where we are supposed to keep our build folder. So click on this upload button over here, click on folder, and find the location of your project wherever it is in the file manager, right? So here's the dist folder. I'll select this and click on upload. Upload, and you can see we have dist folder inside of it. So let me just select all of this over here. Let's just move it. Is it? Yeah, move file. We're gonna move file to one level up, right over here. And let's just delete this dist folder. Okay, so this should have deployed our website. Let's go back and see if our Hostinger dashboard is active right now. Let's refresh this page. And great, our website is running smoothly. Awesome. So let's click on over here and go to trimmer.in, and you can see our website has been deployed successfully. Also, there is one more file that you need to add over here so that React app works properly. Just click on this new file over here and say .htaccess and click on create. And just paste this code over here that I will provide you in the description down below, and just click on save. Now, when you go back to your Trimmer app, it won't crash. Like, so in some reason, when you go to, let's say like /auth, if you refresh it, it might crash. Click on sign up and let's create a new account. So I'll say Piyush, or let's just say roadside coder, and rc@example.com. 1 2 3 4 5 6. Let's just choose a file. Okay, let's create account. It's loading, and I think our account is created. Let's try to go and log in now. So rc@example.com, 1 2 3 4 5 6, and click on login. Amazing, we are in. Let's go on and create a new link. So let me just get a link over here, create new link. Let's say course, just like we have done it previously. Let's leave the custom URL and click on create. And amazing, we are in over here. Let's copy this. Let's go to a new tab. Let's click on enter, And let's see, it's redirecting us, and awesome. We are on to our original URL. Amazing. And now you can see in this statistics page, we can see we have one count from Gurugram, and we have this device analytics as well. Awesome. Awesome. So if you like this video, definitely go and check out my front-end interview preparation course. This is the only course that you will ever need to prepare for your front-end interviews.